Hello and welcome to another episode of A Brief History. Today's episode, Gravity Falls. Ready, set, go! June 5th, 2008. Children's TV channel Cartoon Network premieres the first episode of, honestly, one of the weirdest shows in its history, Thurip Van Orman's The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack. And while not one of the network's most celebrated shows, Flapjack turned out to be pretty much the starting point of the massive cartoon renaissance of the 2010s. Flapjack's crew included the likes of J.G. Quintel and Pendleton Ward, who would go on to create Regular Show and Adventure Time respectively. But these two weren't the only people on the Flapjack team who had bright futures ahead of them. Case in point, Flapjack writer and storyboard artist Alex Hirsch. After graduating from CalArts in 2007, Alex Hirsch worked on Flapjack between 2008 and 2009 before getting a call from Disney executive Mike Moon. Having been impressed by one of Hirsch's student films, Moon offered Hirsch the opportunity to develop a show for Disney Channel. And when the mouse makes an offer like that, you take it. Which is exactly what Alex Hirsch did, jumping ship over to Disney Channel to co-develop their 2010 original series, Fishhooks. And while he was given a good amount of creative freedom while working on Flapjack, Hirsch's time on Fishhooks allowed him to spread his wings a bit more. Alongside his role of co-developer, Hirsch also acted as a writer, storyboard artist, creative consultant, and even voice actor. But there was far more to Hirsch's move to Disney than just Fishhooks, for he was also given the opportunity to pitch an animated series of his very own. However, having grown up on more adult-oriented shows like The Simpsons, Hirsch hadn't really thought much about creating a show for kids. But he had been kicking around this concept that he described as Twin Peaks meets The Simpsons, which eventually came to be known as Gravity Falls. Taking heavy inspiration from Hirsch's own childhood, Gravity Falls was all about a pair of twins named Dipper and Mabel Pines who spend their summer vacation with their great uncle Stan in the mysterious town of Gravity Falls, Oregon, where they come face to face with all sorts of spooky, supernatural happenings. Bit of a tangent, but I can't help but notice that a lot of my favorite things take place in Oregon. No, seriously, Gravity Falls, Gone Home, Life is Strange, freaking Coraline? All Oregon. Should I move to Oregon? Nah, probably not the best idea. That place got gnome armies, time-traveling teenagers, and evil demon spider moms. Anyway, Disney liked Alex Hirsch's pitch, and just like that, Gravity Falls was greenlit for full production, eventually premiering on June 15th, 2012, exclusively on Disney Channel.
Heyo, I'm Jake Paul, and you're watching Disney Channel.
Now, typically, most TV shows premiere one new episode a week throughout a season, and while Gravity Falls tried to do this, it didn't really last long. The first 12 episodes of its 20-episode-long first season were aired on a semi-weekly basis between June and October of 2012, but the remaining 8 episodes were released pretty sporadically between February and August of 2013. And while an inconsistent broadcast schedule like this could have spelled doom for some other show, luckily, Gravity Falls wasn't just some other show. From just its first episode, Gravity Falls already managed to stand out from the crowd with its incredible art and animation, clever comedy, and a story that wasted absolutely no time getting into the mystery and building the intrigue. Which I'm not gonna spoil, so don't panic, dudes. All of this on top of stellar music and voice acting made Gravity Falls an instant hit, with each episode of season 1 bringing in anywhere from 2.5 to 4 million views per episode. Viewers immediately latched onto the series, and the fan base quickly began to grow. So naturally, a second season was pretty much inevitable. But much like in the show itself, this is where things get a little more complicated. You see, in early 2014, it was announced that Gravity Falls would actually be moving from Disney Channel over to Disney XD. But the show was not going to be exclusively on Disney XD. New episodes would be set to premiere on XD, while Disney Channel would air reruns. Even though the season premiere and a later episode in the season both premiered on Disney Channel first, and why is everything about this show so confusing? Anyway, the second season of Gravity Falls premiered in August of 2014, and right away, things seemed to be hitting the ground running. This season seemed far more plot-driven this time around, as the show finally began to offer up answers to its mysteries, while also offering up new mysteries to take their place. Each episode truly felt like an event, and part of this was due, once again, to the show's unusual broadcast schedule. You see, each episode of the show took about 6 6 months to produce. And rather than mass producing the whole season and then releasing each episode in regular intervals, the Gravity Falls team instead decided to release each episode as they were completed, leading to, again, a pretty sporadic broadcast schedule, with gaps in between episodes that could last anywhere from a week to 3 months. Still not as bad as the Steven Universe hiatus, or the freaking odyssey that is waiting for a new season of Sherlock. But despite all of this, by this point, fans were more hooked on Gravity Falls than ever. The shift to Disney XD did lead to the ratings taking a bit of a hit, but to fans, that didn't matter a bit. The show was only getting better and more intense, and we were ready for more. But then came the fateful day, November 20th, 2015, when Alex Hirsch took to his Tumblr and other social medias to officially announce that Gravity Falls would be coming to an end, with Season 2 being the final season. Which was definitely sad news, but the important thing to note here was that the show was not getting cancelled, nor was it ending prematurely. It was reaching a natural conclusion. The series came to an end on February 15th, 2016, with an epic double-length finale that tied up pretty much every loose end in the show, giving fans something that is pretty rare in the world of cartoons: a satisfying ending. Most cartoons are typically cancelled way too soon, or are stretched out so thin and for so long that they just lose that edge that made them popular in the first place. But as if Gravity Falls didn't stand out enough already, it chose to experiment even further by aiming to have a set beginning, middle, and end while not outstaying its welcome. Alex Hirsch has said himself that he wanted the show to encapsulate the events of one childhood summer vacation, and summer ends. Childhood ends. Gravity Falls ends.
So what's the point of doing anything? In the grand scheme of the universe, do I even matter?
But I'm getting sad, so let's move on. Despite ending in early 2016, the popularity of Gravity Falls will no doubt well outlive its initial run. And I mean, how could it not? It was a successful Disney property. Those things pretty much never die. The show continued to see successful merchandise lines and extended universe works even after the finale premiered. And the show's fandom really hasn't slowed down a bit. Even with most of the series' mysteries solved, the fanbase still continues to find new details in the show and in other shows like Rick and Morty that lead to interesting theories that still take the internet by storm. And considering Alex Hirsch is moving on to several new top secret projects, all the while Disney is currently putting out cartoons like DuckTales 2017, which, let's be honest with ourselves, is basically just Gravity Falls with ducks, I think it's pretty safe to say that Gravity Falls was not only a game changer for Disney, but one of the most innovative and important cartoons of the last decade. Thanks for watching, guys. DFTBA. Things used to be way simpler, man. When I was a kid, my favorite cartoons didn't have stories. They were goofy comedies where literally anything could happen to the characters and it would all reset back to normal by the next episode. You could straight up explode a man and he'd be back next week and no one would ever talk about it again. But these days, all these cartoons I'm watching have plots and arcs, and it's exhausting, man. Why do I spend so much of my time crying at drawings? And one of the biggest offenders of this is Disney's Gravity Falls. And that's because it's like the best cartoon ever made? Not necessarily my favorite, but one of the most perfectly made cartoon stories I've ever seen. The story this show fits into just 40 episodes blows my mind, and I really just want to talk to someone about it. So, just like I did with Steven Universe, today I want to bring you guys the entire story of Gravity Falls. Asterisk, it's gonna be very simplified because this video can't be 45 minutes. But before we get started, if you like what I'm doing on this channel and want to see more, then be sure to head down, hit that subscribe button, and ring the ding-dang notification bell or whatever to make sure you never miss a new video. And while you're down there, if you look just below the subscribe button, you'll find my YouTube merch shelf where you can pick up some cool FootofaFerret t-shirts. My personal favorite is the Brief History logo tee, and you can tell it's my favorite because I wear it in every freaking video I make. So if you want to support the channel, subscribing, turning on notifications, and checking out the merch are all great ways to do it, and I really appreciate it. And with all that said, this is Gravity Falls, the whole story, or whatever I decide to call this video. So, here we go. Gravity Falls is the story of Mabel and Dipper Pines, a pair of twins spending their summer vacation in Gravity Falls, Oregon. Dipper is a nerdy dork geek 12-year-old with the voice of a 30-year-old man who likes mysteries, conspiracies, and probably watches a lot of Shane Dawson. Mabel is a super cheery 12-year-old girl who loves unicorns, rainbows, and probably also watches a lot of Shane Dawson. They live with their sketchy great-uncle Stanford Pines, who runs a crappy tourist trap in town called the Mystery Shack. Also working at the Mystery Shack is a teenage girl named Wendy and a Seuss named Seuss. The town of Gravity Falls is full of crazy supernatural stuff, like ghosts, minotaurs, mermaids, Wax Larry King, and a lot more. Dipper starts picking up on all these weird happenings and asks her Uncle Stan about it, but he's like, leave. So while wandering the woods alone, Dipper discovers a secret compartment in a tree that opens up a hatch in the ground. This seems safe. He looks inside the secret grass hatch and finds a dusty, musty book with a giant 6-fingered hand and the number 3 on it. I see absolutely nothing unusual about this whatsoever. Inside the book are journal entries from an anonymous author detailing tons of the weird things going on in Gravity Falls. And this journal comes in handy as tons of crazy things start happening to the Pines. Like, a lot of stuff, man. It's like they built their house on a weirdness magnet or something. For a lot of season 1, the show takes on a monster of the week kind of thing, but there is this underlying mystery from episode 1. At the end of that episode, we see Stan sneaking through the shack at night. He enters a code on a vending machine that opens up a secret doorway. Ooh. But the plot doesn't really pick back up until we meet Gideon. Gideon is a tiny, small little boy who runs his own tourist trap. Somehow. He's a local celebrity and he has an amulet that gives him psychic powers. Again, somehow. One day, Dipper, Mabel, and Seuss go to see Gideon's show to scope out the competition, and Gideon falls in love with Mabel in a matter of like seconds. But Mabel's like,
I have a crush on every boy, but not you.
Mabel sends Dipper to friendzone Gideon, but Gideon's just like, we live in a society, and attacks Dipper with his powers. Mabel shuts that mess down, smashes the amulet, and cuts ties with the toxic Marshmallow Man. And because Gideon is just so mentally stable, he swears vengeance on the entire Pines family by scheming to steal the Mystery Shack. And then we find out that Gideon has a journal just like Dipper's, but this one has a 2 on it. That's 1 less than 3!
And the plot thickens!
Some not much happens for a while, and then Gideon returns. This time around, he wants to steal the deed to the Mystery Shack from Grunkle Stan's safe in the most extra way possible. So he summons this little triangle dude in a bow tie and tall hat named Bill Cipher. You see, Bill's a demon, an ancient interdimensional demon who can enter people's minds. Bill seems to have some kind of history with the Pines, but we'll go into that later. Right now, Bill hops into Stan's mind to look for the combination to his safe, but Dipper, Mabel, and Seuss chase after him. To make a long story short, the gang stops Bill from getting the combination, Gideon calls off the deal, and he just blows up the safe while everyone's busy running around in Stan's head. Yeah, they didn't really think about that part, did they? So Gideon has the deed now. That's a big deal. He plans to tear down the Mystery Shack to build
meta commentary.
But it goes deeper than that. See, Gideon's searching for the other journal. He's got number 2, he wants number 1, and he doesn't actually know that a third one exists. But he does know that once all the journals are together, they can unlock ultimate power or something. We don't actually know yet. And he suspects the other journal is somewhere around the Mystery Shack. Dipper and Mabel tried to stop him, but it only made things worse as Gideon steals Dipper's journal. Plus, with no shack and no job, Stan can't take care of the twins anymore, so they hop on a bus to head back home. But once Gideon realizes he got journal 3 and not journal 1, he assumes Dipper swindled him and is running off with the last journal for himself. Dipper doesn't even know there is more than 1 journal, so obviously the only logical thing to do is giant robot! Yeah, he hops in a giant robot Gideon and chases after the twins' bus. This kid's got no chill, man. He catches Dipper and Mabel.
Oh no!
But then Dipper bursts into the cockpit of the robot and starts beating up Gideon.
Woo! Fighting is cool!
But then the robot falls off a bridge and they all plummet to their doom.
Woo! Children dying is cool!
But then Mabel pulls out a grappling hook that she got in episode 1 and hasn't appeared again at all until the season finale, and she saves Dipper and herself from dying from both a terrible fall and a giant explosion.
Oh, that's cool, I guess. Sorry I wasn't paying attention.
But Gideon knows the town loves him, so he starts to pull a fast one once the cops show up. I know you just saw me attack 2 children with a giant robot, but actually, they're the bad guys. Arrest them now with no evidence necessary. That sounds more like the grandma from Big City Greens, but who can do Thurop Van Orman's voice? Who? But the cops are like, we're totally inept at our job, so okay. But then Stan shows up and proves to everyone that Gideon's a fraud and a creep because he was using hidden cameras to spy on everyone in town to keep up his psychic charade. The town finally turns on Gideon and he's rushed off to jail. The Pines get their home back and everything is back to normal. But then Stan finds out about the journals and is like, that's stupid. You're stupid. I'ma take this. And walks away with Dipper's journal. He goes back through his secret vending machine door, enters some secret lab, and he has the other 2 journals. Okay. He puts the books together, revealing some weird blueprints, gets to work on a giant machine, pulls a lever, a portal opens up, and then Season 2. And things hit the ground running. Gravity Falls only lasted 2 seasons after all, so a lot got crammed into these 20 episodes. Let's see how much of it I can get through before my freaking brain explodes. A big chunk of this season is all about Dipper trying to find the author of the journals and get to the bottom of—
FBI, open up!
Oh crap.
It's the feds!
Yep, a couple government agents show up having picked up some strange activity from Stan's portal machine. But sketchy Grunkle Stan's just like, what? Nah. But whatever, the hunt for the author is on. Eventually, the gang finds a clue in a broken laptop taken from one of the author's old labs. A little label that says McGucket Labs. McGucket, also known as Old Man McGucket, is a nutso-bonkers prospector guy in Gravity Falls who is like a weirdly great inventor, but like, he's the author of the journals? Well, McGucket doesn't actually remember anything. That is, until Dipper shows him a page in the journal called The Blind Eye. He freaks out, and it's time to investigate. They all head down to the Gravity Falls Museum of Natural History, where they discover the Society of the Blind Eye, a secret society dedicated to erasing the minds of Gravity Falls citizens anytime they see something freaky or supernatural in town. Which means they do that a lot. They find a log of McGucket's memories, and it turns out this crazy prospector guy used to be a brilliant inventor who worked alongside the man who wrote the journals. But one day he saw something so disturbing that he invented a device to help him forget about it. He started the Society of the Blind Eye, and it was his own invention that drove him crazy. But on the bright side, with his memories mostly restored, he gets to work repairing the laptop, and what he finds, it ain't pretty.
Hey, Mr. Tummy.
Hey, Mr. Stan!
Okay, no. He discovers that something awful is about to happen to Gravity Falls. Some giant apocalyptic threat happening in the next 24 hours. Which happens to coincide with Stan turning on his giant portal machine under the Mystery Shack, causing weird shifts in gravity and starting a countdown until it fully activates. And then things really hit the fan. The Mystery Shack gets raided by a bunch of those government agents, and Stan is arrested for suspicious activity, stealing drums of radioactive waste, and creating a suspected doomsday device, like a giant portal machine that makes gravity go all wacky. Uh-oh. Dipper and Mabel try to find evidence to clear Stan's name, but instead they find a newspaper clipping about a car crash that killed Stan Pines, as well as one about this unnamed grifter in town. Huh. So Stan Pines isn't Stan Pines. I mean, he could be literally anyone then. We don't know. Also in that box was the code to the vending machine door, so the gang investigates and finds Stan's crazy lab, his giant machine, and the journals. And at this point, emotions are all over the place. Dipper is furious and is convinced Stan's a criminal who stole all the journals. But Mabel's still trying to give Stan the benefit of the doubt. Whatever's happening, they gotta turn off that machine. But just before they can do it, Stan bursts through the door and tells him to stop. Just then, gravity goes all nutso again, tossing everyone into separate corners of the lab, except Mabel, who manages to latch onto the deactivation switch. After pleading back and forth in one of the most dramatic things I've seen in a cartoon ever, Mabel decides to trust Stan's word, the countdown reaches 0, and the machine goes off, the lab's destroyed, but a mysterious figure comes out of the portal. Someone with 12 fingers, and who looks almost exactly like Stan. This is Stan's brother, Stan. Flashback to New Jersey in the 1960s. You have the Pines twins, Stanford and Stanley. Stanford was born with 6 fingers on each hand and was a freaking genius, and Stanley was Well, Grunkle Stan. These two were inseparable, but an accident with Stanford's science fair project in high school ruined his chances of getting into a prestigious college and drove a rift between the two of them. Stanley spent years after that peddling crappy scam products that would fail so bad he'd get run out of town, while Stanford freaking blasted through college and began to study scientific anomalies, moving to a small town in Oregon that was known for its weird happenings and writing all of his findings down in a journal. But just studying weird stuff wasn't enough. Stanford wanted to find the source of these anomalies, but kinda reached a dead end in his research and got desperate. So he summoned a mystical being for answers. Bill Cipher. And he was like, "Hey dude, if you let me invade your mind at will, I'll help you do your homework." And Stanford was like, This seems safe. It was Bill's idea to build a portal, so Stanford and his partner, Fiddleford McGucket, got to work. McGucket accidentally got his head stuck in the portal one day and discovered what was really on the other side. He saw some pretty messed up stuff, so he quit, and we know what happened after that. Bill tricked Stanford. He thought he was finally accomplishing his life's work, but he was really helping a demon merge our dimension with his own crazy nightmare one. So Stanford shut the whole thing down and tried to hide all of his work so that no one could ever reactivate the portal. He had to hide the journals. So he called up Stanley and asked him to take a journal and get as far away as possible. But Stanley, who thought his brother was trying to reconnect, was just like, That's it? He gets super upset and they start fighting. In all the chaos, Stanley accidentally pushes Stanford into the portal and the portal shuts down. Without the other two journals, there's no way to turn it back on. Stanford was stuck in another dimension. So Stanley began a new life in Gravity Falls, turned the house into the Mystery Shack, and took Stanford's name so that he could support himself and stay in town while he worked to find the journals, reactivate the machine, and save his brother. And on top of all that, he faked a car crash to kill his old self and start fresh. So, yeah. This is still a show for 10-year-olds on the Disney Channel, right? Oh, crap. Back in the present, the government is still after the Pines. But Stanford, or I'm just gonna call him Ford from now on, uses the blind eye mind erasing ray that Dipper kept with him to wipe all their memories and save the day. Hooray! But good lord, we are not done yet. See, when Stan turned on the portal machine, it created a little interdimensional rift that Ford encased in a globe, the most dangerous snow globe ever. If that rift ever broke, it'd give Bill Cipher an open window to slither into our dimension and cause trouble. So yeah, we gotta prepare for that. The Pines managed to Bill-proof the shack with some magic junk just in time for the rift to start cracking. I'll just skip the build-up and say Bill ended up tricking Mabel into handing over the rift and oops, Butterfingers, now the world's ending. It's Weirdmageddon, everybody. The end of the world has never been so quirky. Bill and his gang of kooky demons hop into Gravity Falls and start wreaking havoc, turning people into stone and taking them to this weird pyramid in the sky. But due to the town's law of weirdness magnetism, I wasn't joking earlier, that's a real thing, Bill and his weirdness can't spread further than Gravity Falls. So, you know, silver linings. Back in the apocalypse, Dipper manages to find Wendy and Seuss, and the three of them set off to find Mabel, who's trapped in a giant prison bubble that Bill created. Inside it is literally everything Mabel ever wanted. That way she'd never want to leave. To make a long story short, she leaves. The gang bust her out and escape back to the Mystery Shack where they find Grunkle Stan and a bunch of their friends and side characters just hanging out. The Bill-proofing actually worked. Neat! So the gang meets up with McGucket and decides to turn the house into a freaking giant robot to fight Bill. Yeah, we're back on giant robots. And this also actually works. A fight breaks out between the house robot and the demons, and it is so cool. And while Bill's distracted fighting the house, that's a weird sentence, the main gang break into Bill's castle, free Ford and the rest of the people who were turned to stone, and start working on a plan to finally defeat Bill. But before they can really do anything, Bill shows back up, captures a bunch of their friends, puts Dipper and Mabel in a cage, and demands Ford tell him how to break out of Gravity Falls. But luckily, Dipper and Mabel manage to distract Bill and escape long enough for the Stans to come up with a new plan. Ford agrees to give Bill what he wants to save Dipper and Mabel. So Bill enters Ford's mind and... wait, that's not Stanford. Oh, dip! The Stans switched clothes and tricked Bill into going into Stanley Pine's mind instead of Stanford's. And while Bill was inside Stan's head, Ford used the blind eye memory eraser to completely wipe Stan's mind, taking Bill with it. Woo! And with that, Bill is finally gone, the rift into the Nightmare Realm is closed, everyone's freed, and everything is back to normal. Except Stan still lost all his memories. He doesn't even remember his family. For about 2 minutes until it all starts coming back. That didn't last long. And with the world saved and everything back to normal, it's time for summer vacation to end. Stan and Ford team up to go adventuring like they always wanted, Seuss gets put in charge of the Mystery Shack, and Dipper and Mabel leave Gravity Falls. And that is the entire story of Gravity Falls from beginning to end. Wait, if Bill Cipher was in Grunkle Stan's mind before it was erased, and Stan got all his memories back, wouldn't that mean Bill Cipher could come back too? Who knows? Show's been over for 4 years, so it probably doesn't matter. Anyway, reality's an illusion, the universe is a hologram, bye gold, bye! Gravity Falls, the classic Disney cartoon created by Alex Hirsch in 2012. One of the best cartoons of the last decade. With characters and plot so memorable that the show etched itself into TV history with just 2 seasons. Yeah, that cartoon you've been hearing people go crazy over for almost a decade now, it only had 2 seasons. 40 episodes. The show knew what it wanted to do, did it amazingly, and then bowed out. And at this point, Gravity Falls has been over for more than 5 years. I mean, what? No, it hasn't. What are you talking about? Look, it's on right now.
Seuss, I'm going to the convenience store to drink sodas without paying for them. If the cops show up, your name's Jason, and you don't know me.
Sure thing, Mr. Pines. You can count on me, or my name isn't definitely always Seuss.
Whatever.
See? Gravity Falls isn't over. I'm not in denial. Everything is fine. So, yeah, last year I made a video called Pretending Steven Universe Isn't Over, where I attempted to fill the empty dark void in my soul left after my favorite cartoon ended by looking at everything that wasn't the actual show. You know, toys, music, books, games, all that. But if there's one cartoon fan base that needs a video like this more than Steven Universe, it's Gravity Falls. This show's been over for a while now, and from what I can tell, the fans still aren't over it. I've made a handful of Gravity Falls videos in my time, and on pretty much every single one of them, I see comments about Season 3. We want Gravity Falls Season 3. Why can't they make Gravity Falls Season 3? Disney is working on Gravity Falls Season 3. Trust me, I read it on the internet. So clearly people want more Gravity Falls. But with no new episodes, how are we supposed to get our Gravity Falls fix?
By living in denial.
So, let's ignore reality, look at a bunch of random Gravity Falls junk, and see if we can't recapture that magic. Let's start out simple with some Gravity Falls toys. Oh my god. Okay, so Gravity Falls toys have apparently become very expensive. $100 for a pack of 2 figures? $158 for a Grunkle Stan pop vinyl? $240 for 2-inch tall toys?
What is this? Pokemon trading card game?
These are like legit Grunkle Stan prices.
Step right up to the Mystery Shack, folks, for the deal of a century. For the measly price of actually $158, you get a tiny little me you can take home with you. It's 4 inches tall, it does nothing, pay me now.
So I guess my options for looking at Gravity Falls toys are limited to just what I already have. I got 2. These are a couple of Gravity Falls pop vinyls I managed to find over the years. We got Mabel, from that one time she attacked an endangered animal and stole a lock of their hair, and Bill Cipher, the evil world-conquering demon from another dimension. You know,
good wholesome family fun.
Now, I looked at some Steven Universe pops a while back, and I gotta be honest, only one of them really worked with that dead-eyed Funko Pop formula, and I still have nightmares about that Pearl figure. But these Gravity Falls ones translate so much better into vinyl figures. I mean, it's kinda hard to really mess up Bill Cipher. Is a triangle in a hat? But still, I'm really impressed with these two, and even the Dipper and Grunkle Stan ones that I've only seen online. These work a million times better than the Steven Universe ones. And I think a big part of that is just because they didn't give them these stupid mouths. That's what tosses the Steven Universe ones into the uncanny valley for me. They try to make them too expressive. Funko Pops are dead, soulless, empty husks of the characters they represent. And the Gravity Falls series understands that. But what if you just hate Funko Pops? What if Freddy Funko over here kicked you a bunch in elementary school, so you're not buying any pop vinyls? Well, check this out. I lied! The Pops aren't my only Gravity Falls toys. I also have this capsule stand. So this was a part of a series of Mystery Box Gravity Falls figures. I've always loved Mystery Box toys, and this stand is pretty cool. Gives me a hint of that Gravity Falls vibe I'm looking for. But I mean, I only ever bought the one. It'd be cooler if I had a full set. I lied again!
Behold the 2017 San Diego Comic-Con exclusive Gravity Falls Domes 8-character box set.
That was a lot of words to just say toys in a box. This is a complete series of the Mystery Box toys. You got everyone. Dipper, Mabel, Seuss, Wendy, Tax Fraud, Demon, Pig, Barf, the gang's all here. Now, on their own, these figures are just okay. They're kinda cool. But all together and in this display, I really like these. And the Journal 3 theming of the box just gives it this extra edge. It really gives off the vibes of the show, which is exactly what we're looking for here. Unfortunately, it's kinda hard to find, and like the pop vinyls, the prices these days are a little too crazy for me to recommend. So, pretty cool, but let's see what else we got. How about one step up from toys? Video games. Believe it or not, there is a Gravity Falls video game. Gravity Falls Legend of the Gnome Gemulets for the Nintendo 3DS. Does this count as retro yet? I feel like this is getting close to being retro. Released in 2015, this is a puzzle platformer type of game. You play as Dipper and Mabel going around Gravity Falls to collect shiny things for the gnomes so that the bad thing won't happen. What bad thing? It doesn't matter. Video game. This game is, definitely running on my 3DS right now. Okay, so first off, the game looks really nice. The art's basically ripped directly from the show, so obviously it's gonna look good. But once things start moving, it kinda looks like one of those old Flash games you'd play on like CartoonNetwork.com. Is it fun? Not really. It's fine. It works, but the game starts you at the Mystery Shack, tells you to go, 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 and then you walk into the first level only for Dipper and Mabel to immediately go, all right, let's head back to the Mystery Shack. So, you know, not the greatest game design right off the bat. It's pretty simple, repetitive, and not very exciting. It definitely doesn't live up to all the incredible potential a Gravity Falls game could have. But I will say, when it comes to just wanting to be back in the Gravity Falls world for a bit, it's not bad. Like I said, it looks like the show, and there's plenty of character dialogue and interactions that are pretty on point. Overall, the game's alright if you just want another Gravity Falls kick, but I wouldn't play it all the way through. You know, unless it was for a future video or something. Alright, so toys and games didn't really give us much to work with, so let's try something with a lot more options. That's right, we're talking books. Remember books? There's a surprising number of Gravity Falls books out there, the most notable one being the journal, like the one from the actual show. Yeah, Disney took Dipper's journal and made it real, and it is stupidly impressive. Every page you see in the show is here, fully fleshed out in super high quality. Plus, you get a ton of new pages and entries that you never saw in the show. It really is like you took the journal as it would have been by the series finale and made it real. An incredibly creative way to flesh out the world of Gravity Falls and retell the story of the show. But let's face it, if you're a big Gravity Falls fan, you probably already have this. It's kind of an obvious choice. So I want to focus on two other Gravity Falls books. One that is absolutely perfect for anyone missing Gravity Falls, and one that is not. First up, Gravity Falls Lost Legends. If you're a super fan, you've definitely heard of this book too, but just in case you haven't, this is a collection of 4 brand new Gravity Falls comics. Original stories written by Alex Hirsch himself. And let me tell you guys, every single one of these stories feels exactly like a real, full-fledged new episode of Gravity Falls. Everything is here. The art, the mystery, the monsters, the action, the drama, the humor, every aspect of these stories is so on point they feel just like real episodes. Almost like Lost episodes or something. Oh! Seriously though, I don't want to spoil anything or risk copyright infringement by actually reading from the book here, but trust me, if you miss Gravity Falls and just want to get back into that world for a little while, this is the absolute perfect way to do it. But now, on the other hand, let's take a look at the most recent Gravity Falls book from just a couple months ago. Tales of the Strange and Unexplained, bedtime stories based on your favorite episodes, the Grunkle Stan edition. Okay, that's way too long of a title. How about we shorten that to, TOTSA, Never mind, I'm just gonna call it Book from now on. So, as the title would suggest, Book takes 11 different episodes of Gravity Falls and repurposes them into bedtime stories told from the perspective of Dipper and Mabel, with a couple of segments by Grunkle Stan. Seems simple enough, but this book's been a bit of a controversial one for Gravity Falls fans. See, before Book, most major Gravity Falls books were written either by Alex Hirsch himself or someone who had close ties to the Gravity Falls show. But this one appears to have been written by
Faceless Disney Megacorp.
Alex Hirsch had nothing to do with this book, which he made very apparent from the day it was announced. And no joke, it's really easy to tell when you start reading it. These, episode recaps are supposed to feel like they're being told by Dipper and Mabel, but it's just missing something. Honestly, it reads a little more like my Gravity Falls recap. I was just surprised at how little of a Gravity Falls vibe I was getting while reading the actual plot to Gravity Falls, sometimes word for word. Also, unlike the other books I've been looking at today, this one doesn't have any original drawings or illustrations. It's just a bunch of screenshots from the show and... Wait, is that the QuickTime Player menu? I didn't notice that before. How did this get past the editors? How did this get past Disney's editors? Okay, I take it back. This is my favorite book now. So, yeah, Book's not looking like a great option for pretending Gravity Falls isn't over. But, I mean, I'd be lying if I said I wouldn't have loved this as a kid. If you saw my Steven video, you know I ate these kind of books up back in the day. For kids, Book here is perfectly fine. Nothing to complain about. It just doesn't match up to Journal 3 or The Lost Legends. And as an adult, it's kind of boring. So if you're really missing Gravity Falls and are in the market for one and only one thing to help recapture that magic, the answer is clearly Lost Legends. It's a no-brainer. But that book came out almost, 3 years ago? What about the future? Well, not much, really. At least as far as we know. Alex Hirsch apparently wants to make a Gravity Falls video game. I mean, one that isn't that one, but that's up to Disney, not him. Book is the most recent thing released in the Gravity Falls franchise, and it's not anything new. So, for all we know, Gravity Falls could have a ton of new things coming up, or this could be the end of the franchise for a while. Everything could happen, or nothing could happen. We have no idea. But honestly, I think the fact that Gravity Falls ended as soon as it did is part of what makes it so special. I don't want a Gravity Falls Season 3. Fun one-off adventures like Lost Legends are amazing, but I wouldn't really want it to go further than that. The show ended exactly the way it needed to, and adding anything more to that kinda risks ruining the magic, no matter how good it might be. So yeah, Gravity Falls is over, and that's a good thing. Just watch, now that I've said that, they'll announce Season 3 in a week. Just frickin', you got what you wanted! As of 2023, Gravity Falls is officially over a decade old. So, here are your pills and your prune juice. Congrats on turning old. But yes, everyone's favorite comedy, mystery, action, drama, whatever, animated Disney series Gravity Falls is old, premiering all the way back in 2012 and ending in 2016 after 2 seasons. And yet, despite all that time, the love for the show hasn't died down a bit. It's a classic at this point, an absolute icon of 2010s cartoons. And I miss it. And hey, you clicked on this video, so I'm willing to bet you're just as far down the Gravity Falls isn't over denial rabbit hole as I am. So today, let's ignore reality for a while, look at a bunch of random Gravity Falls junk to fill the void, and pretend it's 2014 again. It's time to live in denial! If you're new to these videos, yes, this is a series, what I like to do is take a look at a bunch of random Gravity Falls stuff outside of the show to find the best way to relive that Gravity Falls vibe without just re-binging the show for the 20th time. Really, it's just an excuse for me to buy a bunch of toys and games and call it work. And if you're new to Gravity Falls in general, not sure why you're here, but hi. Gravity Falls was a Disney Channel cartoon from the early 2010s about 2 twins named Dipper and Mabel spending their summer vacation with their shady great uncle Stan at his tourist trap cabin, the Mystery Shack, in the suspiciously supernatural town of Gravity Falls, Oregon. The show is mostly just the gang fighting off the monster of the week until it eventually escalates to be a massive, sprawling mystery plot that ends with stopping a demon apocalypse from another dimension. I won't go into it any further than that, but just rest assured, it goes places. And one of the big reasons Gravity Falls caught on with fans so much was how the show left breadcrumbs in every episode for fans to decode, pick apart, and theorize about where all the show's mysteries were heading. Heck, the show basically revolves around a set of journals full of mysteries, so it should be no surprise that there are just a ton of Gravity Falls books. It just kinda makes sense. And last time I went on a Gravity Falls denial binge, I took a look at 3 of them. One that's a complete recreation of the main journal from the show that basically every Gravity Falls fan has. Another that was a comic book collection of new Gravity Falls stories called Lost Legends that was really good. And one more that was a book. But believe it or not, there are even more Gravity Falls books to check out. At least 2 more. That's all I have. First up, we have Gravity Falls, Dipper and Mabel's Guide to Mystery and Nonstop Fun. A 2014 release that's one of those books, you know? The kind of book that really only exists in the world of licensed cartoon merchandise, where the book is basically there to teach you all about the show, the world, the characters, etc. Even though the only people who would buy a book like this clearly already know all of that stuff, so, you know, why does it exist? It's written from the perspective of Dipper and Mabel as they write to you. That's right, you. They're talking to you. They want to be friends with you. The story goes that Dipper found an empty book laying around and decided to start writing about his supernatural encounters in Gravity Falls to teach some hypothetical reader, that's you, how to be a paranormal expert like him. Even though I'm pretty sure he was already doing that with Journal 3, so him starting a whole new book doesn't really make sense. But if we ignore the canon, we can sell 2 books. But Dipper's entries are only half the story. Mabel also hijacks this project a bit to write segments about stuff like fashion and sleepovers and, plus there's a few entries by Seuss, Grunkle Stan, Candy and Grenda, Gideon, and even Bill Cipher himself. There's also a few dedicated activity segments, which are basically just an excuse to print some blank pages, I see you. And of course, because it's Gravity Falls, there's also some secret codes to crack, but God, I just don't care enough. Overall, this book's pretty cute. It's simple, it has the Gravity Falls vibes down fine enough, but it's not really gonna enrich your life or anything. Books like these, I feel, only exist for kids who really like Gravity Falls and want something that can make them feel like they're watching Gravity Falls while they're, like, stuck at school. They don't present anything new, they aren't telling an original story or anything like that. It's just a tiny slice of Gravity Falls junk food to pass the time. It ain't bad, I've definitely seen worse, but it's not really gonna satisfy a hunger for some real Gravity Falls content. Enter Gravity Falls, Dipper and Mabel, and the Curse of the Time Pirate's Treasure. These titles just don't get any shorter, do they? This, of all things, is a choose-your-own-adventure book. Or, I'm sorry, a select-your-own choose venture. Do people remember these? They're books where the story has branching paths and choices for the reader to make. Yeah, kinda like a video game. But they saved a fortune on the graphics. You start reading, reach a fork in the road, and have to flip to another page to see where your choice takes you. So it's a book with multiple endings. And this one's all about Dipper and Mabel going on a time-traveling adventure with occasional Gravity Falls side character with a regrettable voice actor, Blendin Blandin. And their adventure to find some long-lost time treasure, of course, has a few branching paths. For my read-through, Dipper and Mabel went all the way back to medieval times, met a dragon with deep-seated and unresolved emotional trauma, fought a bunch of time pirates, found their treasure, and then just ditched it because morals, I guess. But looking at the cover of the book, it seems I could have just as easily read a book about the gang going back to the Wild West or Off to the Future. And I think that's just a really cool thing. I don't know if these kind of books really exist anymore. Plus, if the last book was a bit of Gravity Falls junk food, this is a Gravity Falls meal. Not only is this a new original story with multiple outcomes that you can really take your time exploring, but the writing is spot on. The character dialogue and humor is on point, exactly like the show. And they even translate some of the show's more visual gags into descriptive text. I mean, those jokes don't really land the same when you can't, you know, see them, but still, it's impressive that they took the extra care. You know, sometimes it kind of feels like I'm reading the script to a long-lost episode or something. And all that doesn't even mention, like, the original illustrations and stuff. It's a great time. I was really, really surprised by Curse of the Time Pirate's Treasure. This isn't just some novelty book like I've looked at before. This is a real, bona fide original Gravity Falls story that I think is worth your time. I was completely satisfied with just my one read-through, and there's still at least 2 storylines I haven't even seen yet. I can easily recommend this to Gravity Falls fans, especially over the first book. You know they cost the exact same price? Anyway, next up. Wait a minute. This isn't a book. This is just the actual show. Lame. Okay, but this is actually pretty cool. What we're looking at here is the official Gravity Falls Complete Series Blu-ray box set. Now I know we're trying to not just be watching the show again here, but hear me out. Back in 2018, this special edition Gravity Falls box set got released on Blu-ray and I bought it immediately. And then it got stuck in storage when I moved 3 years later. So here's the second copy that I bought 5 years later so I could talk about it in this video. Of course, there's a handful of those like weird metal circles that supposedly have all the moving drawings on them. But I didn't buy this Blu-ray to watch it. Nah, I'm just gonna look at it. Like everything else Gravity Falls related, this box set is completely themed around the journals. It comes with 3 separate Blu-ray cases themed around journals 1, 2, and 3. Obviously, these include season 1 and season 2, and then there's just a ton of bonus features. Behind the scenes stuff, mini documentaries, commentary for every single episode, deleted scenes, shorts, promos, and a lot more. But you know, probably the coolest part about this box set was actually a complete surprise. What's this? Secrets? I wonder what this could be. Oh, now I'm just sad. That's right, this collector's edition box set actually came with a show-accurate replica of the See You Next Summer note from the last episode of Gravity Falls. I say show-accurate, it's like they took the drawing, they printed on paper, that's it. So if you're really missing the show, this honestly probably won't help. This might just make things worse. It might just make you sad. And you may be wondering why I'm not holding up a copy of this note on camera or something. Well, the box set I ordered online didn't come with one. I guess they stopped making them after a while, so take from that what you will. No one wants to see me next summer. But seriously, this box set is really cool. Unfortunately though, they actually discontinued it recently. You might still be able to find it on like eBay or Amazon for an inflated price, but otherwise, this thing ain't available no more. But we don't need a fossil like this. What are you? Old, decrepit, dying. No one even uses physical media anymore. Everything's on the internet, man. So why don't we see what kind of extra Gravity Falls content we can find online? You know, actually, some of the most recent official pieces of Gravity Falls content are online shorts. Back in September of 2020, we got 2 new and kinda random shorts posted to YouTube. First was this crossover with the game Line Rider. It was basically just these avatars of Dipper, Mabel, and Stan going through a level of Line Rider set to the Gravity Falls theme. Kinda out of nowhere, but cool. Then 2 weeks later, there was another short uploaded, Call Me Mabel, a full-length parody of Carly Rae Jepsen's Call Me Maybe sung by Mabel that is exactly what you'd expect it to be. They got Mabel's actual voice actor to reprise her role 4 years after the show ended just for this, and they do the whole song. And I'm just like, why? Why? I mean, it's a cute short, any new Gravity Falls is welcome, but this is just so instantly dated. The show was 8 years old at this point, and so was Call Me Maybe. I'm just saying, this is the most 2012 video to have ever been uploaded in 2020. Turn to page 55, are we still in the past? But of course, there are a ton more Gravity Falls shorts to check out once you start digging a bit deeper. And ones that are definitely better for the whole pretending it's not over thing. There are so many Gravity Falls shorts out there that are basically just bite-sized bits of the show. Yeah, these are the kind of shorts that are just meant to, you know, fill airtime during commercial breaks or get some views on the Disney Channel website or YouTube channels. And if you miss Gravity Falls, I mean, this is literally just more Gravity Falls. The main, like, series of shorts all focus on the various main characters. You got Dipper's Guide to the Unexpected, a series of home videos where Dipper talks about the weird stuff he finds around Gravity Falls. Mabel's Guide to Everything, in which Mabel finds all sorts of new and exciting ways to endanger her life and the lives of those around her. And of course, you gotta get Seuss in there with Fixin' It with Seuss, which, in his own words, is the only home fix-it show that I edited myself on my computer. I appreciate the bad editing jokes in this one. It makes me happy. There's Gravity Falls Public Access TV, which follows a bunch of different characters around Gravity Falls, and I'm sure there's even a few I'm missing. Actually, you know, now that I'm thinking about it, these shorts are basically just the fully animated versions of each character's various segments from that book from earlier. Huh. Weird. Even less reason to buy that one over the Time Pirate one. But this is not the only short-form Gravity Falls content out there. I mean, we've only been looking at the other animated Gravity Falls shorts so far. And while I was scrolling through them all, I discovered something harrowing. Gravity Falls puppet shows. Welcome to the weird and short-lived world of Mystery Shack Shop at Home with Mr. Mystery. 7 individual 1-minute-long shorts featuring only this vaguely disturbing Grunkle Stan puppet running a home shopping show. Occasionally, you'll hear Seuss, Dipper, or Mabel off camera, but they don't have puppets, so besides that, it's just you and Puppet Stan. And I gotta be honest, this puppet design weirds me out. And I know I said the same thing about the puppets in my Dang Bluey video. Puppets in general just kind of give me the creeps, okay? But this one of Grunkle Stan actually isn't that bad. Like, objectively, it's pretty dang good. But I did still feel kind of uneasy while watching it and couldn't quite put my finger on why, but then it hit me. It's his mouth. This Stan puppet is designed to always kind of be holding this toothy grin, but the puppet's still gotta open its mouth to talk. So they just carved out a part of his chin and have it flap around. Meanwhile, his mouth is still like technically closed. His smile actually stretches past the part that's actually moving. So it just kind of looks like Grunkle Stan has like unhinged his jaw and it's just flopping off his face.
Ew. Yeah. Ewy.
So yeah, Puppet Grunkle Stan sits behind the counter, looking like a don't hug me, I'm scared character, and is like,
Ice cream beef makes your teeth go gray.
and he's just out here hawking his junk that ranges from full-fledged scams to actually probably cursed supernatural artifacts. And every now and then, he even takes calls from customers. Check it out.
Well, Stan Pines, long time no talk.
Do I know you?
I'm sure I'm in your memory somewhere.
Wait, what did he say? That was Bill Cipher. You know, Bill Cipher, the ultimate villain of Gravity Falls, who was defeated by tricking him into invading Stan Pine's mind and then erasing his memories. Yeah, that guy. I mean, there's been a very popular theory that as Grunkle Stan got his memories back, that meant Bill Cipher could also find a way to return. Did the biggest fan theory in Gravity Falls history just get confirmed in the minute-long Shopping Network puppet show parody? What? Okay, so calming down and looking deeper into it, it looks like this short was originally posted in November of 2015. Technically, the finale hadn't aired yet, so maybe not. Though that was only about 4 months before the finale aired, so that ending had definitely already been finalized. Which means this might not be confirmation, but it's still a very particular choice of words, written with the events of the finale already in mind. So if you ask me, that can't be a coincidence. Am I reaching? Maybe. Did the writers know what they were doing here? Absolutely. Maybe we can find a little more theory evidence by digging a bit deeper. Let's see.
Dear teeth. Snowpiercer! Snowpiercer!
I was just joking about the don't hug me, I'm scared thing, but nah, that was freaky. The heck was that? I think we're done with Gravity Falls shorts now. And moving on from Gravity Falls puppets, I think it only makes sense to check out some Gravity Falls toys. Now, if any of you guys watched my last Gravity Falls denial video, you might remember me saying this. Gravity Falls toys have apparently become very expensive. $100 for a pack of 2 figures? $158 for a Grunkle Stan pop vinyl? $240 for 2-inch tall toys? These are like legit Grunkle Stan prices. Yeah, unfortunately, while there are a pretty good amount of Gravity Falls toys out there that I could look at, they're all like high-value collector's items now. I'm talking like at least $100 per toy if you want them still in the box. And Lord knows I was not gonna pay those ridiculous prices. Times have changed. That's right, in the 2 years since I first talked about them, I now have what I believe to be the full set of Jazzwares Gravity Falls figures from all the way back in 2014. And you might think, oh, so you actually bought them. Did the prices go down? No. Yeah, I just bit the bullet and bought them for the stupid price. And usually this would be the part where I'd start ripping them open to show you the toys in more detail, but yeah, right. Like I'm actually gonna open them. Buying them was dumb enough. So you know what I did instead? I bought more. I actually found someone on eBay who was selling a nearly full set of these toys loose, so they didn't cost anywhere near as much. Could I have just bought those to begin with? So, with my questionable financial choices now on full display, let's see what's going on with these toys. First up, we have this Gravity Falls figure pack of 6 2-inch tall toys. You got Dipper, Mabel, Stan, Seuss, Wendy, and Big Gideon. Seriously, this Gideon is huge. Dude's almost as big as Stan and Seuss. But for real though, I really like these. I've looked at my fair share of toys based on cartoons, and believe me, they don't always turn out great. Cue footage of Muscle Man regular show toy and Nightmare Fuel Phineas toy. But these Gravity Falls ones are shockingly on point. These characters translated to 3D really well. I mean, they aren't perfect. We've already discussed the scaling issues with Big Gideon. That's just kind of the thing you have to expect from tiny toys like these. Other than that, I mean, Mabel's face only looks a little bit melted. Seuss is pretty much perfect, but that's pretty normal for Seuss. Oh wait, 3-inch figures available? What the heck are we wasting time on these for? Gravity Falls 2 figure packs. Slightly bigger toys with the more than slightly bigger price. We got 6 more toys here. It's Dipper, Mabel, and Grunkle Stan again, but now each one comes with a little buddy. Obviously, Mabel comes with her pet pig Waddles. Dipper comes with the rainbow barfing gnome. For some reason, they were really proud of that joke back in the day, weren't they? And lastly, we got Grunkle Stan and Bill Cipher. Well, isn't this a coincidence? I know these toys came out like 2 years before the finale, but since we were talking about it earlier and we're already living in denial, I think it's fine to continue following this delusion. Bill Cipher is 100% alive in Grunkle Stan's mind, and that means we get 6 more seasons of Gravity Falls. It's like Groundhog Day, but with an interdimensional demon triangle. Okay, jokes aside, I really like these toys. Like, for real, they nailed these. I mean, yeah, the eyes can be a little protruding. Grunkle Stan does kind of look like a cheap animatronic, and I mean, I guess you'd have to try pretty hard to get Bill Cipher wrong, though mine is broken, so, you know, there's that. But I'm really impressed with how well these characters were translated to 3D toys. I like them a lot, which is wild because these were made by the exact same company as those nightmarish regular show toys. Yeah, the same people who made this amazingly accurate Grunkle Stan figure, they also made Exposed Gum's Bite of 87 Rigby. It's amazing what just a couple years and an entire TV special mocking your work can do for a multi-million-dollar toy company. And there's one more thing about these toys that you might have noticed. A little emblem on each one that says scroll inside. Scroll? Like from the Bible? Like I said before, when I ordered these toys off eBay, I had already decided I wasn't gonna open them. But once I finally had them in my hands and I saw that little blurb, I was just like, no! The second a toy has anything inside the box that you can't just see, I feel like I have to open it. And usually, I live by a philosophy that life's too short to not open your toys. But not when they cost over $400. Yeah, no, that ain't happening. Luckily, a lot of those loose toys I bought came with a couple of the scrolls too. So we might not be able to see all of them, but I think this is a good compromise. You guys get to see what the heck these scrolls even are, and I get to continue sabotaging my own content by teasing the idea of opening something but never actually doing it, leaving my audience slightly unsatisfied. Let's take a look. Ugh, okay, thank God. They're just pages from the journal, that's it. God, that's a relief. I mean, yeah, they're cute, but I already have a big book where I can see all this stuff in much greater detail without it being folded up. Cause you know, collectors love already damaged items. Also, not to actually a 9-year-old cartoon toy, but why are these scrolls? These have always just been pages from the journal. Were scrolls even part of the show? I can't remember. Not canon, 2 out of 10. Well, now that I've wasted several $100s, I think it's time to do something I never do in these cartoon videos. Watch cartoons. But don't worry, we're still not watching Gravity Falls, because that would defeat the purpose of the video. I think. The framing device for these videos is kind of thin now that I think about it. We all know Gravity Falls was an extremely successful show, and that success has had irreversible effects on the world of modern cartoons. Like, I'm pretty sure most of the major Disney cartoons released in the last 5 or 6 years just wouldn't exist without Gravity Falls. At least not without some major changes. So if you're out here in Gravity Falls denial looking for something to fill the void, honestly, one of the best things you could do right now is watch a completely different show that just happens to have the same vibe. Trust me, there's plenty. Disney made sure of it. Now, I've talked about most of these shows at length in other videos, so I'm gonna be a bit more brief here, but the Disney Channel cartoon lineup lately has been super Gravity Falls influenced. Only about a year and a half after Gravity Falls ended, Disney gave us DuckTales, a 2017 reboot of the 1980s classic about Donald Duck's nephews, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, all going on adventures with their 1%er uncle, Scrooge McDuck. Already, that premise does kind of sound like Gravity Falls. Triplets or twins going on crazy supernatural adventures with an eccentric uncle? Yeah, it sounds familiar. But if Gravity Falls took a bit of inspiration from the original DuckTales, maybe? DuckTales 2017 just completely copied Gravity Falls' test. This new DuckTales does have the same premise as the original, but now updated with basically just a bunch of stuff to make it more like Gravity Falls. The shows have very similar senses of humor, the stories and mysteries are a lot deeper and higher stakes now. Huey is now always carrying around and referring to his Junior Woodchuck guidebook the same way Dipper's always carrying around and referring to the journals. They're even wearing similar hats, robots. Come on, people, are you getting this? One of the side characters, Launchpad, basically just got turned into a Seuss duplicate. All the kid characters are clearly being voiced by men in their 30s. I mean, this show really is just DuckTales Gravity Falls edition. And it's fantastic. It's a genuinely amazing show with good storytelling, stellar animation, and just pitch perfect casting. David Tennant as Scrooge solidified the show as a classic before it even premiered. Oh my god. Then a couple years later, in 2019, Disney put out Amphibia, another new animated series about a group of kids winding up in a new and exciting world of supernatural mystery. Our resident Dipper and Mabel this time around are three friends by the name of Anne, Sasha, and Marcy, and instead of Oregon, they wind up in an alternate dimension full of talking frog people. So, Oregon. Anne gets taken in by a frog family called the Planters, Polly, Sprig, and Hop Pop, and they all work to find her friends and get her home, but of course they get caught up in a mystery plot with tons of twists, turns, and drama as they learn that this magical place has a dark past. If you're a Gravity Falls fan and this is not ticking the boxes, I don't know what to tell you. Again, Amphibia has basically an identical sense of humor and storytelling as Gravity Falls, but in my opinion, is actually kinda better? I don't know. I know Gravity Falls is a near perfect show in my opinion, but something about Amphibia resonates with me just that touch more. I don't want to go too much deeper into it because I will end up spoiling something, and I've done that plenty in other videos, but all I'm gonna say right now is that this is my current favorite Disney cartoon of all time. I'm not saying it's objectively better than Gravity Falls, I just like it more. You should absolutely watch it. When it comes to being like Gravity Falls, it's not quite as one-to-one as DuckTales can be, but I mean, there's literally an entire Gravity Falls crossover episode. They turn Grunkle Stan into a frog. What more could you ask for? Then, the one you guys were probably waiting for, in 2020, Disney premiered The Owl House. Significant here for not only being the most popular cartoon Disney has put out recently, but also being the show that has the most actual Gravity Falls DNA in it. Created by Dana Terrace, The Owl House is the story of a human girl named Luce tripping into a magical realm full of fantasy junk, befriending a witch named Ida and a tiny little demon guy named King. Luce then has to find a way home and learn to become a witch herself, all while, once again, getting wrapped up in a giant mystery plot with tons of twists, turns, and drama as she discovers that this magical place has a dark past. You noticing a trend with these shows by now? All these cartoons have similar setups, senses of humor, etc., but The Owl House gets extra Gravity Falls fans will like this points because it actually has a number of characters voiced by Alex Hirsch, the creator of Gravity Falls and the voice of Stan, Seuss, Bill Cipher, and more. You know, it's simple, but sometimes just hearing a familiar voice in a show can really go a long way. Like how most of these shows have at least one character voiced by Strongbat, and that's why I love them so much.
Allow me to relieve you of that located shoulder!
But despite starting with similar setups and general vibes, DuckTales, Amphibia, and The Owl House do go on to become totally unique shows in their own right. They aren't Gravity Falls clones or anything. But if you do like Gravity Falls and want something new to scratch that same itch, these are perfect. The Owl House is probably the one that'll hit you the hardest, but they're all fantastic shows. But what if you want to go outside of Disney? God forbid you rebel against the sovereign. What's out there scratching that Gravity Falls itch on, say, Netflix? Well, that brings us to Inside Job, a wholesome Netflix animated series created by Shion Takeuchi that tells the charming story of the shadow government. Yeah, you know how The Owl House was about a girl finding out that all the stuff she read about in fantasy books was real? Inside Job is kinda like that, just replace fantasy books with shady internet forums. In this show, every conspiracy theory you've ever heard of is real, and our main character Reagan works for the company that controls all of it, Cognito Inc. And we get to watch her mingle with her coworkers, struggle for respect in the workplace, try to fix her love life, and replace the president with a robot clone, chop off the arms of reptilians, and build a robot clone of her Tinder date so she doesn't have to face real human interaction. Fun for the whole family. Now you might be wondering why I'm even talking about this. I mean, yeah, Gravity Falls had some conspiracy theory, secret society vibes, but that doesn't mean every show with that kind of stuff is gonna fill the Gravity Falls void. Well, shut your mouth, dear viewer, because I've been keeping a secret of my own. This show is executive produced in part by Alex Hirsch. So yeah, the creator of Gravity Falls is in on this one too. He even voices some of the characters. If you ever wanted to hear Old Man McGucket's voice come out of the guy who assassinated a president. And the creator of the show was also a writer for Gravity Falls, so there's a lot more Gravity Falls blood in this show than you might think. The main difference is that this is not a show for kids or the family. This is a 100% for adults only cartoon. I'm talking rated M for mature levels of not for kids. Granted, I don't think most Gravity Falls fans are like tiny babies or anything. The show is over a decade old, but still, if you prefer your cartoon characters keep their clothes on and watch their language, Inside Job might be a bit much for you. That being said, the show does still kind of have that Gravity Falls thing. Those mysterious conspiracy theory vibes that Gravity Falls delves into are turned up to 11 in Inside Job. Plus, the characters are great, the animation's really nice, and it can get pretty serious when it wants to, all just like Gravity Falls. You know, if Gravity Falls could swear, was super violent, and could actually talk about things like Instagram and Facebook instead of making up fake parody versions. I don't know, for some reason only adult shows are allowed to do that. So yeah, if you miss Gravity Falls, these 4 shows, DuckTales, Amphibia, Owl House, and Inside Job will all be right up your alley. And while they might not fill the void completely, they will definitely bring back some of those Gravity Falls vibes. There's just one problem though, all these shows are also over. Yep, DuckTales ended in 2021, Amphibia ended in 2022, and the Owl House ended earlier this year. And Inside Job, geez, that's a whole mess of its own. The show launched in 2021 and was renewed for a second season by Netflix, only for Netflix to be like, oh, oops, never mind, and reverse their renewal, canceling the second season and cutting the show off after only 18 episodes, dooming Inside Job to the worst fate a cartoon could have, being canceled on a cliffhanger. Ugh, it's the worst. I mean, at least the other shows got to wrap up properly, but dang. Ugh, jeez. So in order to pretend Gravity Falls isn't over, I gotta pretend like 4 other shows aren't over too. Huh. I think this might be the point where I admit I have a problem. Yep. I'm doing it again. I'm about to hop up here and talk about how amazing Gravity Falls is, how it's been gone for ages, and once again fall down the pretending Gravity Falls isn't over rabbit hole. Because today, I want to take a deep dive into Gravity Falls Legend of the Gnome Gemulets. Yeah, apparently way back in 2015, there was a whole dang Gravity Falls video game released for the Nintendo 3DS. So of course I bought it, and of course I'm gonna play through the whole thing and make a video about it. Let's take a look. The game starts at the Mystery Shack, where Dipper and Mabel are talking to their Grunkle Stan.
Ah, smell that country air, kids. The sun is shining, the birds are chirping. It's days like this that make a man glad he's not currently in jail.
Wow, Grunkle Stan, I've never seen you in such a good mood. Did the doctor change your medication?
I just got a good feeling about today. Why don't we take the day off? Grunkle's treat.
So the gang's about to have a nice, relaxing day off. Sounds like the perfect time for a mysterious flying log creature to swoop in and then just kinda leave. Didn't do anything crazy, just flew in, paused, and left. But apparently that was enough for Grunkle Stan to be like,
I could kill that thing and make money off it. Kids, forget everything I just said. We're going after that thing.
And with that,
we're off.
I chased the flying log thing to a nearby forest, but legit, not even 30 seconds later, I run into some thick fog that's blocking my way. Dipper's like, we're gonna need an item to get through here. Let's head back to the Mystery Shack. And then they just head back the way I came. My first task in this game was to enter a level, then immediately leave. This is off to a good start. Dipper and Mabel hop back to the shack, say hi to Seuss, sup dude, grab the magic flashlight from that one episode, and head back to the forest. While playing as Dipper, I used the flashlight in a super fun and challenging touchscreen minigame to clear the path forward. It took like 2 seconds. But look, there's the flying log thing, and he's beating someone up. That's so cool. So this is Jeff the Gnome. He's been around since the first ever episode of Gravity Falls, and he's kind of a jerk. But right now, he's getting flaming balls thrown at him. That's so cool. He falls over and drops this shiny stone on the ground that the creature then steals. And they're gone. Dipper and Mabel are like, what just happened here? And Jeff's like, well, it's a funny story I like to call the setup of the video game you're about to play. So according to Jeff, that stone was the Wind Gemulet, one of 4 elemental crystals that gives the Gnome Kingdom its magic. And now they've all been stolen and scattered across Gravity Falls. Without the Gemulets, the Gnome Forest will die, and it'll just be a bad time all around. So it's up to Dipper and Mabel, aka me, to explore Gravity Falls, find the 4 Gemulets, and save the forest. First things first, I gotta find the creature that made off with the Wind Gemulet. Jeff says it probably went towards the old mine. So I make my way out of the forest, aka the tutorial level, and one map screen later, I have finally reached the actual, proper gameplay. So here's how this junk works. Legend of the Gnome Gemulets is a 2D platformer. You play as Dipper and Mabel and can switch between the two at any time to take advantage of their different attacks and special items. Dipper's got the magic flashlight and Mabel has her grappling hook. The majority of the gameplay is basic running, jumping, beating up enemies, and doing some occasional puzzle solving type stuff. All while collecting this random junk you find on the ground that Grunkle Stan can use to make more of those scam attractions for the Mystery Shack. There's some branching paths to explore, and the levels have some pretty nice attention to detail. None of it's particularly difficult, but this is a kid's game, and I'm a million years old. I make my way deeper into the old mine, and eventually reach... Ooh, a minecart level. Is this gonna be like Donkey Kong Country? Alright then, let's go! Oh, Mabel's dead. Guess it's not exactly like Donkey Kong Country. Reload, try again, and after a successful but kinda uneventful minecart ride, I find the last of Grunkle Stan's mystery items, which means it's time to head to the end of the stage. Or at least, that's what was supposed to happen. I had a bit of a brain fart moment. Once I collected that last item, my objective was updated to meet Stan at the cave entrance. So I'm like, okay, I've been in a cave this whole time, so I guess I gotta backtrack like in the forest. And it wasn't until I ran all the way back to the start of the stage that I realized, oh, that's right. I'm an idiot. So I basically had to do the whole level again just to go down this very obvious path to Grunkle Stan that I should have seen the first time. He's like,
Hey, check out this dark, scary, and definitely dangerous cave. You kids should be fine in there. You got a flashlight, right? Alright, I'm leaving now.
Classic Grunkle Stan. I head inside and the wind gemulet is legit just right there, sitting around. Huh. Really thought there was gonna be like a boss or something in here. Ooh, wait, here's something. Cool. Grab the gemulet, and that's level 1 down. Oh, also, before we move on, that. Pay attention to that. Like, really keep that in mind. Trust me. And believe it or not, I've basically played the entire game right there. I'm serious. I take the wind gemulet back to Jeff, head back to the Mystery Shack, get an upgrade from Seuss, sup dude, and head off to the next level where I do more running, more jumping, more collecting, more mini games, did everything I've already done, just rinse and repeat. Next level we're getting the water gemulet at the lake, then the earth gemulet in the deep forest, and then the fire gemulet in the caverns. All the levels feel basically the same as the first one. Nothing really changes or gets any harder. The only difference is now we got boss fights to deal with. And by boss fights, I of course mean one singular boss fight repeated over and over. Remember that pile of junk from level 1? Yeah, turns out that's the boss. Of like the whole game. Different versions of this lifeless corpse show up at the end of every future stage to do the same 2 attacks on a freaking loop. I feel like I'm skipping over a good chunk of the game here, but like, look at these. What can I say about this? The story isn't progressing. I'm just grabbing Chaos Emeralds for a gnome who bathes in squirrels. Speaking of, we got all of them now, so I head back to Jeff to hand them all over. Dipper and Mabel are like, here's the gemulets, you little weirdo. Oh, thank you so much. You've saved the rainforest or whatever. Now I can use these for my totally not ulterior motives. Yeah. Wait, what? Okay, maybe I should have seen that coming. So yeah, Jeff takes the gemulets, starts chanting ominously, and suddenly transforms into... Dang it. He turns into Dark Jeff. Yes, that's his real name. And yes, he's just another reskin of the exact same boss monster I've been fighting the whole game, except now he has a silly gnome face. And, clearly the game wanted this to be the big dramatic twist, but everyone's just kind of standing there, smiling. Meanwhile, Dark Jeff goes off on one of those classic villain explains their entire plan monologues. Turns out the gemulets weren't the source of the gnome's magic, and the forest was never in danger. This was all just part of Jeff's plan to assemble 4 powerful ancient talismans that would grant him ultimate power. It's always ultimate power. And all those recycled bosses I was fighting? Yeah, those were the guardians of the talismans who were meant to protect them from falling into the wrong hands. Ancient guardians! And they got wiped out by a couple of preteens. Easily. Like, without any difficulty at all. It's embarrassing. Just then, Dark Jeff sets off this wave of dark energy that shrouds Gravity Falls in, like, darkness or something. I manage to escape. Eventually. And the gang takes shelter in the Mystery Shack where Stan is like,
Don't worry, we'll be safe in here. I reinforced these walls with bunker-grade steel so nothing can... Yep.
As expected, Dark Jeff breaks into the Mystery Shack and starts messing everything up, changing up the color palette, and kidnapping all of Dipper and Mabel's friends. Oh, and then he drops this bomb on me. All those mystery items I was collecting for Grunkle Stan are apparently living components of the ancient totem guardians, which I think is an extremely convoluted way of saying, hey, we're gonna turn all these items into enemies now, and you gotta beat them all before you leave. Gotta be honest, I don't really think that needed an explanation. Especially not one that tries to imply that these frickin' boots are actually an ancient guardian, but whatever. I tear through another bunch of monsters and head out of the Mystery Shack, only to be met by... Oh, one of the Guardians. Apparently they're not actually dead. The Guardian talks to Dipper and Mabel and gives them more info on Dark Jeff. Apparently he's been possessed by an ancient evil entity called Gremularth who was sealed into the Gemulets a long time ago. And Dipper and Mabel are like, wow, thank you for the info. Can you help us fight him? Yep, yeah, cool. So with that, I head to the Gnome Forest one last time for the final level. And this is probably the best level in the game. Not only is it longer, more substantial, and more varied, but we actually have new enemies this time. Like, Waddles? Really? You're kidding. I mean, yeah, technically it's a clone of Waddles created by Gremularth's magic, but like, still, this game is forcing me to beat up a pig. I don't like that. It's only fun in Animal Crossing. After a while, I find the real Waddles, who's trapped under Gremularth's control, and set him free, which takes care of all those clone enemies. Rinse and repeat that to save Wendy, Seuss, and Grunkle Stan, and with that, we've reached the final showdown with Dark Jeff. And it's the same boss we've already fought 3 times now. In fact, this one's actually gotten easier. Whatever, I beat Dark Jeff and he turns back to normal. But with the Gemulets free, they all come together and reform Gremularth, who's... They're really gonna make me fight this boss for a 5th time? Yep! The final boss of the entire game is just another one of these Guardian fights. It's at least a little more difficult. This is the first time any of these bosses managed to kill me, but it's still just another slightly different take on the same 2 attacks. So, one disappointing final boss later, and the day is saved. Jeff's like, sorry. Dipper and Mabel are like, it's chill. And the gang decide to take the Gemulets and toss him down the bottomless pit from that one episode. Wait, really? That's a genuinely terrible idea. These things were scattered across Gravity Falls and protected by ancient Guardians to keep them from being put together. And instead of giving them back to the Guardians because they're apparently still alive, you just want to chuck them in a hole? We've seen the Bottomless Pit episode, right? We know those Gemulets are just gonna pop out the other side. Literally anyone could just scoop them up at that point. How stupid are you? Just roll the credits. Guys, this game's not that good. Like, even as a big Gravity Falls fan, this was kind of a slog. And it sucks because Gravity Falls has so much potential as a video game. But this, I can't say it's anything more than okay. It didn't even take 5 hours to beat, and for the $20 I paid for it, that's way too short. But I gotta say, it did kind of bring back those Gravity Falls vibes. The levels might not be the most exciting thing in the world, but they genuinely feel like they were plucked right out of Gravity Falls. The character dialogue too. So if you're still in Gravity Falls denial, like me, and want something new to try out, I mean, it's not the worst. Oh, we even have an after credits scene here. Yeah, see? Look, I was right. This game is dumb! You ever notice how pretty much every modern Disney cartoon has the same setup? I'm serious. Most original Disney cartoons these days are about kids being whisked away from their boring normal lives and tossed into a new location full of weird, supernatural, or fantastical junk where they're taken in by a new family or extended family member and they all work together to face the challenges of this new location while uncovering some sort of mystery. This is like very specifically a Disney thing right now. And if you ask me, this probably all started in 2012 with Gravity Falls. You know, Gravity Falls. That show about 2 twins spending the summer with their shady great uncle in a town full of spooky supernatural stuff with an underlying mystery that slowly unravels over the course of the show's 2 seasons. Sound familiar? Gravity Falls was a huge hit for Disney. I mean, the show ended in 2016 and the fan base is still ride or die. And that kind of long-lasting success is not gonna go unnoticed by the mouse. See, Disney is all about formulas, if you can't tell. And with Gravity Falls, they found a winning formula for their cartoons and have just hit the ground running, putting out awesome shows ever since. And I bet they've kept their eyes on all of them, just waiting to see which one might become their next huge hit. The next Gravity Falls. But every cartoon is a unique and original piece of art, built from the life experiences and imagination of the individual who created it. They may take inspiration from other shows, but they use that as a foundation to build their own story and legacy. No cartoon can really be the next Gravity Falls. But let's play along anyway. Today, I want to take a look at the 3 main original cartoons on Disney right now. DuckTales, Amphibia, and The Owl House. Sorry, Big City Greens, maybe another time. Not to see which is the best show or anything, but more to see each one's potential for becoming Disney's worthy spiritual successor to Gravity Falls, while only kinda spoiling all of them. But first, I just want to say if you enjoy this video and want to support the channel, then you can always like the video and subscribe by hitting the red button below and clicking the bell next to it to be notified whenever I upload in the future. Also, just a reminder, I do have a couple of fun shirts available over at my merch store. There's the classic Brief History logo tee like you see in every video, and there's the I Am the Salt t-shirt, which now doubles as my mood every time I play Animal Crossing. You can find those in this little banner just beneath the video or at the link in the description. So yeah, if you want to support my channel, those are a few of the best ways to do it, and I really appreciate it. Anyway, back to whatever it is I'm doing this week. And I want to start with DuckTales. Partly because it is the oldest of the three, but mainly I've just been waiting for a reason to talk about this show for the last 3 years. So, DuckTales is the 2017 reboot of the 1987 Disney classic, DuckTales. Duh. We got three brothers, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, living a pretty normal life with their boring uncle Donald Duck, who then drops the boys off at their great uncle Scrooge McDuck's gigantic mansion. Scrooge here is the richest duck in the world, who used to go on all sorts of crazy adventures, fighting monsters, discovering lost treasures, and all that. But he's been retired for a long time. That is, until Huey, Dewey, and Louie barrel into his life, cause a bunch of trouble, and get him back into adventure. And that's basically the show. Now, to be a contender in this weird little contest I'm throwing, you don't have to follow the Gravity Falls template exactly. That similar setup is important, but it's more about having a vibe. Like, the shows should just feel cut from the same cloth. But, right off the bat here in DuckTales, we've got siblings being taken in by a great uncle with a mysterious past and going on fantastical adventures. That's pretty on the nose. Or on the beak, I guess. Plus, there's characters like Webby, who's basically Mabel if she was socially awkward, and Launchpad, who is our resident Seuss for this cartoon. Whoa, dude, this is crazy. It's like you're me. Whoa, are you a pilot? Define pilot. And of course, by the end of episode 1, we got a mystery on our hands.
Mom?
Man, when I first saw this at the end of the premiere, I was immediately hooked. I love DuckTales. I almost went into Grunkle Stan. I love DuckTales! It's actually one of my favorite cartoons, period. But in terms of taking the throne from Gravity Falls, I'm not sure. A lot of the pieces are there, no doubt. It's got all the action, adventure, comedy, and drama you could want from this kind of cartoon. But if you ask me, there's one big thing missing, and that's, well, this is gonna sound contradictory, but it is the mystery. See, DuckTales has its fair share of mysteries, but where Gravity Falls' mysteries were the foundation of the show, so far, DuckTales just kinda has mysteries sprinkled in over its foundation of a fun adventure show. Like the show's first main mystery, Huey, Dewey, and Louie's mom. That gets resolved in the first 2 seasons, but then the show carries on with their mom just being a part of the cast now. Kinda like Great Uncle Ford in Gravity Falls. But in Gravity Falls, the mysteries pretty much were the show, all leading up to the finale. Great Uncle Ford coming back in Gravity Falls was a catalyst towards the end goal of the show. That's not really been the case with DuckTales. Mysteries are part of DuckTales, but DuckTales isn't its mysteries, if that makes sense. Also, as much as I hate to say this, I don't really think DuckTales is catching on. I mean, we're 3 seasons in, and I feel like I barely hear anyone talking about this show. At least not a lot. Compare that to Gravity Falls, which is still being talked about 4 years after it ended, and I just don't think DuckTales is gonna reach that level. Which is fine, don't get me wrong. Very few cartoons ever do reach that level, and it has absolutely no bearing on whether or not it's a good show. Like I said, DuckTales is an all-time favorite of mine. I think any Gravity Falls fan will find stuff to love in this show, and it's on Disney+, check it out. This video is not sponsored by Disney+. Amazing show! The next Gravity Falls? Probably not. Does that matter? No, I'm an idiot. Next up, Amphibia. Amphibia. An entire cartoon based solely around this face. This is a 2019 cartoon about 3 girls who get magically transported from their normal boring lives to a world of frog people. for some reason. Our main character, Anne, is taken in by this nice farm family, the Planters, Polly, Sprig, and Hop Pop, as they try to figure out a way to get Anne back home. Now, I'll admit, when I first started watching this show, I didn't think it was gonna be a contender for my arbitrary, totally made up, pointless competition against a show that's not even on anymore. Like, yeah, you had the classic Gravity Falls style setup, and there was plenty of monster fighting and fantasy junk to enjoy, but for the majority of its first season, Amphibia's just a really good and mostly normal slice of life comedy show with not much of a mystery. Gravity Falls hit you with the mystery in like the first 5 minutes. Amphibia just doesn't go that hard. Legit, the entire first half of season 1 can basically be boiled down to this. Wow, you are old and your ways are dumb. Well, you're young and your ways are dumb. We shall perform shenanigans of generational conflict and come out in the end with a new appreciation for each other's perspectives on life. Good, and I'm sure we will forget everything we've learned and do this all over again in a week's time. Blech. Yeah, the show doesn't really have much of an overarching plot until the end of season 1. Though, who knows, maybe by the end it'll pull a Steven Universe and all the early stuff we only half paid attention to will become the ultimate evil. Look out, the Grubhog's got a knife! But yeah, season 1 keeps things pretty simple. Season 2 is getting more involved as Anne's human friends are starting to show up. I mean, they are in the opening, I'd hope they'd play into the plot at some point, but so far, Amphibia, much like DuckTales, is more of a comedy show that occasionally breaks out into plot. The characters aren't as one-to-one like DuckTales, but the style and humor feels very Gravity Falls. But again, it's kinda been missing that mystery element. Though I do think that's gonna change pretty soon. Season 2's been building the intrigue and world building a lot more. And then there's the box. See, Anne and her friends were transported to Amphibia by this weird music box they found at a pawn shop. And just like Grunkle Stan knew something was up with the journals in Gravity Falls, Hop Pop sees this box and starts sweating. He knows more than he lets on, and the show's starting to drop hints that some revelations may be just around the corner. Also, if you want to talk about Amphibia being similar to Gravity Falls, the show has an entire episode that's just a Gravity Falls crossover. Kinda. The gang roll up on the Mystery Shack, Curiosity Hut, where they meet Grunkle Stan. Like, no, for real, this guy is legit just Stan Pines, but a frog. Same voice and everything. Heck, Seuss even makes a guest appearance to provide meta-existentialism and a drug reference.
Good wholesome family fun.
So, when it comes to Amphibia's chances in Disney's next top Gravity Falls, things are okay. In terms of popularity and fan response, it feels like Amphibia's on a similar level as DuckTales, but where I worry DuckTales is on its way down, I think Amphibia may be on its way up. It feels like the show's on a bit of a slower burn than Gravity Falls, but things are starting to happen, and I'm really interested to see where it goes. Also helps that I just adore this show and all its characters. I can easily see myself rewatching this one over and over. Again, it's on Disney+, check it out. This video is still not sponsored by Disney+. And so, that leaves us with The Owl House. Okay, calm down. This is the most recent show of the bunch here, premiering earlier this year and having very recently wrapped up its first season. And, of course, we have our classic setup. A nerdy girl named Luce is about to be sent off to a boring summer camp when she randomly stumbles through a portal into a magical land straight out of a young adult fantasy book. She's taken in by this witch named Ida and this adorable little baby demon King, whose voice is literally just Bill Cipher without the effects.
Oh, the Steven Universe wannabe thinks we sound the same.
Ha! I don't even hear it.
Yeah, I mean, you've got all that chorus and delay on your voice, and I don't.
Yeah, plus, I'm a demon from a different dimension.
Well, I also am a demon from a different dimension.
Huh.
Luce starts learning magic with Ida, meets new friends, and just totally runs off to live a new life in this dangerously unpredictable world while lying to her mom that she's still at summer camp because apparently there's cell service in this dimension. One of the cool things about the Owl House is how it goes hard with its fantasy stuff. The other shows definitely have fantasy elements, but Owl House is just all about its monsters, magic, big lore, and heck, they even go to wizard school like it's freaking Harry Potter. Now, The Owl House is a perfect example of what I meant when I said this wasn't about strictly following another show's format, but more about having the same vibe. Because all these shows have elements similar to Gravity Falls. DuckTales has a lot of similar character types, Amphibia has a very similar style of humor, and all of them have similar setups. But I feel like this show definitely stands out against the others, even Gravity Falls. The world, the characters, the mysteries, the lore, they're all very distinct to Gravity Falls, but carry the same energy. Watching the season finale for Owl House gave me the same feeling as watching the pieces start falling into place in Gravity Falls, even though what I was seeing was very different. It's less about cracking codes and finding clues, and more just learning the dark, disturbing secrets of this world. But it feels the same to me. Watching DuckTales and Amphibia, I could always tell these shows were similar to Gravity Falls, but they never drummed up the same reactions from me. I mean, DuckTales made me cry and Amphibia has me intrigued, but so far, The Owl House is the only one that's given me that same "whoa, what?" reaction that I got from Gravity Falls' crazier moments. And in terms of popularity and fan response, you guys have been asking me to talk about The Owl House every single day for the last few weeks. So I think that's kind of your answer there. Seriously, over the last month, The Owl House has just exploded. And that's important here. See, as great as DuckTales and Amphibia are, I've not really seen a lot of major hype around them. Gravity Falls had hype. And now, The Owl House has hype. I think it's the first new cartoon of the 2020s to really get people excited, and I can totally see why. So between our three contenders, DuckTales, Amphibia, and The Owl House, the one, in my opinion, most likely to become Disney's next Gravity Falls is The Owl House.
Congratulations!
This reward means nothing, but hey, the real winners here? Oh, it's us, no doubt, because we just get to enjoy these shows. All of them. Disney is killing the game right now with its cartoons. This might be the strongest lineup they've had in years. I know I just spent this whole video comparing and contrasting all of these shows to Gravity Falls. And while they're definitely cut from the same cloth, they really are unique in a lot of ways. Like I said before, there is no replacing Gravity Falls. That show was its own incredible thing and was hugely influential. What we're seeing now is that kind of influence being put into practice, paving the way for new shows that are awesome and cool in their own right. Back in January, I made a video where I said the 2010s gave us some of the best cartoons of all time, and we're gonna usher in a new decade of stuff that's just as good, if not better. And these three shows are exactly what I was talking about. Blech. What is going on with Gravity Falls right now? They drop one new book and suddenly the whole fandom implodes. And now I'm getting dragged into it, so I guess we gotta talk about it. So, basics first. Gravity Falls is, of course, a Disney Channel animated series from the 2010s. It's about two twins named Dipper and Mabel Pines who spend their summer break with their shady great uncle Stan in the mysterious town of Gravity Falls, Oregon, where weird supernatural stuff happens all the time. We all know this. And eventually, the whole show revolves around this group fighting off an evil interdimensional demon of chaos named Bill Cipher. And he is the reason we are talking about all this today. See, spoiler alert, Gravity Falls ends with this little glowing triangle guy being tricked into entering Grunkle Stan's mind, only for Stan's mind to be erased, taking Bill with it. But as Dipper and Mabel worked to help Grunkle Stan regain his memories, there was always this lingering question of whether or not that could give Bill Cipher a way to come back too. He even says in his final moments that he might return.
AXOLOTL! My time has come to burn! I invoke the ancient power that I may return!
And I talked about all of that at the very end of my Gravity Falls recap video years ago. Wait, if Bill Cipher was in Grunkle Stan's mind before it was erased, and Stan got all his memories back, wouldn't that mean Bill Cipher could come back too? Who knows? Show's been over for 4 years, so it probably doesn't matter.
Anyway, reality's an illusion, the universe is a hologram, bye gold, bye!
So imagine my surprise when, one day last week, my TikTok started absolutely blowing up because a video was going viral using that exact audio. At the time of writing this, that video has over 1 million likes. Not views, likes. I had no idea what was going on, but in the video, there was this mysterious looking countdown with Bill Cipher sitting above it. All right, fine. What's happening? What did I miss? Introducing The Book of Bill, the latest piece of official canon Gravity Falls media written by series creator Alex Hirsch. This book is kind of a spiritual sequel to Journal 3, the first big canon Gravity Falls book. But this time, it's all written from the point of view of the Triangle himself. So of course, I had to pick up a copy and give it a read. First impression? This slipcover feels awful. I'm serious. This paper slip over the cover has this really rough, coarse feeling that I just despise. It's like sandpaper or something. It's like some kind of sensory thing. I just can't stand touching things that feel like this. So we are throwing that away. But once I actually started reading it, okay, yeah, I can understand why people started blowing up my TikTok over this. Yeah, that clip from earlier where I say, if Stan got his memories back, could Bill Cipher then come back too? This book really likes to play with that exact idea, while also not giving any definitive answers about it. Cute. For real though, this book is a riot. The setup is that this is some kind of mysterious supernatural book created by Bill as a way of finding and tricking another human, i.e. you, into being his new partner. But it's also a deep dive into what Bill claims to be his backstory. Because it's Bill, I'd take all this with a grain of salt, but apparently he was born in the second dimension but had the innate ability to see the third dimension, or like sense it, or something like that. Something no one else in his dimension could do, so he killed everyone. He then hopped to a new dimension called the Nightmare Realm, formed a crew of henchmen, and just caused chaos. That is, until the inherent lack of stable physics in the Nightmare Realm meant that they were inevitably going to be swallowed up by the edge of reality and blinked out of existence. Fun! Good times, good times. Which of course led to Bill then attempting to enter our reality. And a lot of the book is dedicated to like building up Bill's paper trail throughout history, depicting many attempted and failed plans to find a human partner who would help him build his big portal machine to bring the Nightmare Realm to Earth, and we saw all that in Gravity Falls. We also got several new entries from the journals, written by Stanford Pines, all diving deeper into his relationship with Bill and the inevitable fallout. This book is interesting, it's creative, and it is genuinely hilarious. This page, the How Will You Die section, is legit the hardest I have ever laughed at, like, the written word. It's really good. But all that is like, you know, what you might expect from a Gravity Falls book. What you might not expect is that the Book of Bill isn't really for kids. I mean, it's not horrifically inappropriate or anything, but it's clear they're aiming this book more for those OG Gravity Falls fans. The ones who are in their like mid to late 20s now that the show's been around for over a decade. I mean, just look at some of this imagery. This is freaky stuff. Way scarier than anything in Gravity Falls up to this point. Plus, there's actually some legit language going on here. Nothing crazy, but you know, we got some and even a in there. In that How Will You Die section, there is a barely veiled direct reference to the Kennedy assassination. This book has the word polycule in it, which means now this video does too. Live with that. This book is not just some cash grab kid stuff. And don't get me wrong, that is a very good thing. It's nice to see Gravity Falls grow up a bit. Just saying, if you're planning on getting this for your 6-year-old or something, do it. It'll be funny. But of course, the Gravity Falls fandom didn't just completely implode over a book. I mean, like, they kind of did, but just like the show itself, there's always more going on if you know where to look. Have you guys ever heard of an ARG? He said, knowing full well how much of his YouTube audience comes from game theory. But for those like me who weren't as aware, ARGs are alternate reality games. I think that's what showed up when I Googled it. Which basically means they're like weird little scavenger hunts with clues and codes and secrets to unravel. For example, despite my lack of knowledge on the subject, turns out I'm actually part of an ARG right now. Last month, the game theorists launched their lo-fi music project Lorfi, which is half chill lo-fi music playlist and half murder mystery ARG. I made a bunch of songs for it, there's hidden clues in the songs and in the visuals, and over the course of the project, piecing those clues together will lead to a greater story going on behind the music. And that's also what's going on here with the Book of Bill. And you know, this is nothing new for Gravity Falls. These kinds of code cracking, scavenger hunt ARG mysteries have always been part of it. I mean, there were secret codes in the credits of the original series, almost every episode. Not to mention, there was this big ARG scavenger hunt thing when the show ended that involved finding this Bill Cipher statue in the woods in the actual real world. So when I opened this book up and saw this first thing, I knew exactly what we were in for. Now, I'm not a very experienced theorist or code cracker, ironically, so when I was done reading the Book of Bill, I just kind of strolled over to the Gravity Falls subreddit and looked at what they were cooking up. And what they found was a website listed in the book called thisisnotawebsite.com FootofaFerret.com. And when you go to that website, in classic mystery form, you need a password to enter. Now, I don't know exactly how people figured this out, but the password was T.J. Eckelberg, which is one of those like blue curtains-ass literary metaphors from that classic book, The Great Gatsby, which, funnily enough, Bill briefly turns the book into for a few pages near the beginning. I haven't actually read The Great Gatsby. We never had to like do that in school, so I think it's those eyes on the billboard or whatever, but that doesn't matter. Maybe. The important thing here is that plugging TJ Eckelberg into that password box brought up a mysterious countdown clock surrounded by ancient Bill Cipher icons. And when it was found, people started scrambling. What was the countdown for? Is this how they announced that Gravity Falls is coming back?
What's going on?
This was when my TikTok started blowing up. People were freaking out, believing we were right on the cusp of our favorite cartoon finally returning from the grave. The countdown reached 0, the screen changed to say now, and if you refresh the page, the countdown was back, now ticking down into the negatives. And Seuss is here now. He says, "Oops, the Mystery Shack is currently experiencing some delays, dude. Please bear with us as we figure out which wire goes where." So I guess that technically makes this an error screen with a new countdown that just kind of keeps going. But unsurprisingly, there were still more secrets to be found. You could actually click on Seuss and it would change what he was saying. He'd say things like, "I'm gonna watch you. You're the website now, dude." And hopefully no one expected anything too crazy. Dude just starts going on about random stuff, talks about the Icy Bear, Funko Pops, Otter Pops, and he gives probably the first shout out to Lullaby by Sean Mullins in like 25 years. I mean, I pride myself on knowing obscure pop music references, and even I had to look that one up, but he also gives us a couple links to click on. One for some soothing tunes to listen to while he fixes the website. This one takes us to a Gravity Falls themed lo-fi channel, and hey! That's our thing! And the other one is for some fine literature, which takes you to, no joke, a nearly 200-page PDF of The Great Gatsby. I cannot tell you if this PDF has any special hidden clues in it, because I did not read it. Hey, I already read one book for this video, don't push your luck. But if you were particularly dedicated, aka if you sat spam clicking Seuss for minutes on end, something weird would happen. That's a demon. That's a demon right there. I've seen a few demons in my day. Seuss is briefly possessed by Bill Cipher and drops yet another secret code in a cryptic font. People on the Gravity Falls subreddit found the font and worked out that this message translates to so many questions.
Damn it!
That doesn't help at all. Or maybe it does, and I'm just too stupid to figure out how. But you know, all of this was weird and interesting and fun to explore, but what it wasn't was an answer to like anything. At the time I'm writing this, the countdown has been ticking down into the negatives for well over 10 days, and nothing new has happened. The fandom has found extra little clues here and there, and I'm sure the book is teeming with stuff that hasn't been cracked yet. But as of right now, we're kind of stuck, just, you know, waiting for whenever Seuss gets this website fixed. Now, there have been some interesting things said on social media about all this. Alex Hirsch himself took to Twitter and said,
"Sometimes technical difficulties..."
Yeah, he sounds like Grunkle Stan. To me, that's just his voice.
"Sometimes technical difficulties are actually just technical difficulties. Give Seuss a few days to fix what he's cooking up. He's a good handyman. He'll get the job done."
Meanwhile, Jason Ritter, the voice of Dipper Pines, I can't do an impression of him, sorry, has been on an absolute Twitter tirade. He has legit been adding tons and tons of tweets to the exact same one thread since July 30th, all about Gravity Falls and the Book of Bill, sending out more cryptic codes, pretending to be possessed by Bill, all while acting like he totally doesn't know what's happening. He's just in the dark as we are. Yeah, sure. So all of this has left us in the Gravity Falls fandom scrambling to figure out, you know, what the hell is going on. Hey, guess what? The day I recorded the last line that you just heard is the day the website finally got fixed. And with it, a whole new slew of stuff to talk about, leading me to have to rewrite my video script. Hooray! So randomly, after like 11 days of waiting, Seuss got the website under control, and suddenly, thisisnotawebsite.com went from this to this. Spooky. This honestly brings me way back, man. This is your classic point-and-click interactive website. I played around on sites like this all the time when I was a kid. Yeah, you got a copy of the Book of Bill with a dagger stuck in it, a skull with a gold tooth, a candle, and this old computer from McGucket Labs that, of course, has another password box on it. You can click around the page to see some fun stuff, like the book unlocks another journal entry from Stanford, the dagger brings up another document from this old group of Bill Cipher hunters, the gold tooth gets you a get-out-of-death-free card, etc., etc., etc. But then the main event is this computer password box. Unlike the old password screen, there isn't just one code to unlock something this time. You can type in basically whatever you want, and if you're lucky, it might unlock something. Type in Dipper, you get a note from Bill to Dipper. Type in Mabel, stickers pop up on the desk, weirdly slowing down my computer for some reason. Type in Stanley, and you're taken to an eBay results page for brass knuckles. Type in Stanford, and you get some old medical records about Stanford's polydactyly, and so on and so on. Typing in the name of just about any character from Gravity Falls will unlock something here, except for like Candy and Grenda, and, the cops and stuff. But most of them, most of them. But it gets even more fun when you just start plugging in random stuff. You know, typing in Weirdmageddon brings up a newspaper article that tries to act like no apocalypse ever even happened, but then just typing in Weird unlocks a video on the computer screen, and that's Weird Al. Weird Al Yankovic.
How did I get inside this computer? How do I get out of here? Bill! Bill! Let me out! Bill!
Oh my god, this is insane. There's a few other cameo videos that you can unlock too. Like typing in conspiracy gets you this video of, I want to say Charlie Day. I don't know people sometimes. Freaking out over the countdown and what it all means. And on the same note, typing in theory gets you...
Hello, Internet! This time, you're on your own. Good luck.
Who the hell was that? Yes, apparently MatPat got a cameo as well. I just can't get rid of that guy. I thought he was supposed to be retired, so why does he keep showing up everywhere? Funnily enough, you can also get this clip by just typing in MatPat, somewhat implying that MatPat is canon in the Gravity Falls universe, which would, by extension, make me canon in the Gravity Falls universe. Like, I've been in that room. Too much, too meta, too close, zoom out, zoom out! But yeah, so the website is an actual website now, so that's pretty cool. And with all the stuff you can find on this website, it's basically like adding several extra chapters to the Book of Bill. Like some of these Easter eggs are basically full-on stories that would have taken up a couple of pages in the book at least. There's just so much content here. But I guess the question then is this it? Is this what everything's been leading up to? Or is there still more to be found? If you ask me, I would be willing to bet that this is kinda where it ends. Like, the fandom might crack more codes and unlock more cool things on the website, but I don't really think there's any big revelations to be dug up here. Which, you know, given the intensity of this whole experiment, was clearly what a lot of people were kind of expecting. People thought this was all leading up to some big announcement. Of course, what a lot of people were spreading around was that this was all leading up to the triumphant return of Gravity Falls with a big new third season that would go on for 1,000,000 years and remain at the exact level of insane quality as the original series, and yeah, I don't think so. I hate to harsh everyone's vibe here, but I just don't think that's what's happening. I mean, looking at the website, there are a few codes with interesting results in that direction. Typing in Season 3 makes a message pop up on the computer screen reading Season 2. Then Season 2 unlocks a message reading just Season 1. But then typing in Season 1 makes a message pop up that reads Season -1, Anti-Gravity Falls. That's not a small thing, I guess, but at the moment, it's kind of impossible to tell if that's teasing some big new thing or if it's just Alex Hirsch trolling the fandom. I know. Trust me, I know that I am the Gravity Falls isn't over, live in denial guy. I just don't want people to get their hopes up for some big new thing, then be ultimately disappointed by what we have, which is still really fun and really cool. Because, dropping the bit, I really don't think a third season of Gravity Falls would be a great idea. It would be fun, sure, it's not a bad thing necessarily, because like, are there more stories that could be told with these characters and this villain and all that? Of course, we've seen that already in books like The Lost Legends and, well, this one. But I would just hate for this near perfect 2 seasons of TV to be spoiled or made less special by an unnecessary continuation. And I know there are some rumors going around of Disney people saying talks were happening or whatever. I don't know how true all that is, if at all, but really, I don't think more Gravity Falls is necessary. At least not more seasons. At the absolute most, I think a movie would be cool. You know, one final adventure. Maybe it's the Pines fighting Bill Cipher in the Nightmare Realm or something. But after that, I think Gravity Falls would have done more than enough to have made its mark on the world and be put to bed. And if we just continued to get fun pieces of extended universe content like the Book of Bill or maybe some shorts here and there, I think that'd be plenty. You know, it keeps the spirit alive without sullying what came before. I don't know, man. Maybe I'm wrong. And to be honest, I'd love to be proven wrong. I mean, even if I don't think it's necessary, a big Gravity Falls comeback would would still be a huge event that would make so many people happy. And you know, that's important. But I just want to save everyone from getting their hopes up too high, only for all this to just be an excessively elaborate episode of Fixin' It with Seuss.
Fixin' It with Seuss.
You know? No, actually, this one might be worth it. Everyone's talking about Gravity Falls recently. I mean, especially me. Ever since the Book of Bill came out back in July, the Gravity Falls fandom has been lit up like a Christmas tree. It's like 2013 all over again. Everyone's so excited and nostalgic about the show again. And of course, that brings up the same old question we've been asking for years: will Gravity Falls come back? I mean, the Book of Bill came with this big ARG mystery and a website that all seemed like it was building up to something, but over a month later, nothing has really happened. So, is it coming back? It's honestly a fair question. But the other question I don't think anyone's really asking is, if Gravity Falls did come back, how? Like, what would a Gravity Falls comeback actually look like? And would it even be a good idea? Should Gravity Falls come back? Now, don't get me wrong, Gravity Falls is an amazing cartoon. Genuinely one of the best, not just of the 2010s, but of like all time. And I know I'm the guy who's made multiple videos called Pretending Gravity Falls Isn't Over, or whatever. This show is great, and on the surface, more of it would be really fun. But after my last video on the Book of Bill, seeing how intensely people have responded to the ARG, and how much of a renewed passion for Gravity Falls has sprung up all around it, I keep thinking about whether or not continuing this show would, in some way, spoil the lightning in a bottle genius of Gravity Falls. And, as a result, thinking of how you could realistically revive something like Gravity Falls in a way that doesn't completely dump on everything that came before. It's an interesting thing to think about. I mean, let's be real, it's not like we have a shortage of Gravity Falls media. Here on the channel, beyond the show, we've looked at the shorts, the books, the toys, and even the video game, which, don't worry, I will be talking more about later on. And of course, I assume we all know the basic setup of Gravity Falls by now, but in order to really understand what I'm going to talk about here, I feel like you gotta have the full context, and I also refuse to leave out the uninitiated. So if you've heard this spiel 1,000 times, keep it to yourself. So, Gravity Falls was a Disney cartoon that premiered in 2012 and ran all the way to 2016. And over those 4 years, the show got a whopping total of 2 seasons. Yeah, there were a lot of gaps in the release schedule. The show was created by Alex Hirsch and centered around 2 twins named Dipper and Mabel Pines being shipped off to Gravity Falls, Oregon for their summer vacation. While there, they stay with their great uncle Stan Pines, who runs a tourist trap called the Mystery Shack. And in the first episode, Dipper stumbles upon this journal that catalogs all the weird, paranormal, supernatural stuff that goes on in Gravity Falls. Which, of course, Dipper and Mabel quickly start to experience firsthand. Zombies, minotaurs, dinosaurs, wizards, gnomes. Multiple times. Dipper and Mabel's summer in Gravity Falls is defined by weird junk happening. And all the while, Dipper's trying to figure out who wrote the mysterious journal that's been helping them deal with all this crazy stuff. Well, spoiler time. Turns out it was all the work of Grunkle Stan's long-lost twin brother, Stan. Double Stans. Well, okay, one is Stan Lee and the other is Stan Ford, so we just call them Stan and Ford for short. Ford over here got lost in another dimension after a fight with Stan Lee accidentally sent him tumbling through a portal machine. It was a big deal in the show, huge reveal, massive piece of animation history in the last 10 years. Anyway, right around the time that Stanford is brought back to Gravity Falls, the gang all then have to fight the biggest threat yet, an interdimensional chaos demon and New York Times bestselling author, Bill Cipher. He sparks this intense apocalyptic event called Weirdmageddon, where he opens up a portal to something called the Nightmare Realm and just lets it all spill out into Gravity Falls. But after tricking Bill into entering Grunkle Stan's mind, they use a mind erasing gun, don't ask, it's a thing, to wipe Stan's memory, taking Bill with it. But luckily, Grunkle Stan gets all of his memories back and everything goes back to normal, totally not accidentally leaving the door open for Bill Cipher to come back and causing the fandom to go absolutely wild with theories. No, nah, not at all. That is the biggest oversimplification I think I have ever done. I did a whole video recapping the plot of Gravity Falls that I'll link to at the end of this video if you want more details, or you can just watch the show. It's good, and it's not that long. Shut up. So, with all that in mind, where do you go from here? Well, in my opinion, there are 5 realistic options. Option 1, Season 3. A pretty obvious place to start. This is what everyone's been begging for ages, especially recently. Gravity Falls had 2 seasons, 40 episodes. Just keep it going! The show ends with the message, see you next summer, so just jump forward to the next summer. Come up with some new villains and mysteries and just let the Mystery Shack crew get back to their old schedule. Easy, right? Yeah, come on, Alex Hirsch. You know your groundbreaking animated series that told one of the most well-constructed stories in the genre and was filled with incredibly intricate and well-thought-out mysteries? Just
do it again. Get back on the wheel!
There are some good things about this option. For one, there's really nothing wrong with just wanting to see your comfort characters back in a familiar place. Hearing those voices and music and experiencing that sharp sense of humor again. It's nostalgic, and there is a lot of merit in that. Even if it's easy to get cynical since nostalgia has been so weaponized for marketing these days, revisiting something that once defined a very important and impactful part of your life is a powerful and worthwhile thing to explore. But beyond that nostalgia, what more would you really expect from a third season of Gravity Falls? Let alone a fourth, or fifth, sixth, or however many. In order for Gravity Falls to just pick back up where it left off, there would not only need to be a whole suite of new one-off stories written, but there would also need to be new mysteries and twists and turns developed from the ground up that are able to then one-up everything from the original series. That is, if you want the new seasons to actually be at the same quality as the original and not just exist for the sake of existing. You know, this isn't Phineas and Ferb, where continuing the show is as easy as making a list of new machines to build. Gravity Falls is still beloved to this day because of the incredibly detailed and thorough mysteries, plot twists, and character arcs. And it completed all of those back in 2016. That's 8 years ago. To revive and continue a show like Gravity Falls in the same spirit of the original would require creating new mysteries that are just as in-depth, developing full-fledged ARGs for fans to decipher in the real world, and finding ways to up the stakes from events like Stanford's reveal and the Weird Mageddon finale. Not to mention having to create new arcs for each of the characters to go through, which is a really delicate process. A lot of sequels or continuations are honestly really bad at this. Oftentimes, instead of a character going through a new arc, they just kind of undo the character development from the original so they can just learn the same lesson again. This is the kind of thing that can kill a previously beloved character in a sequel or reboot. Plus, continuously having to up the ante when it comes to threats and plot twists, that's how shows usually wind up jumping the shark. Ultimately, I think bringing Gravity Falls back for a third season is just way more complicated than it initially might sound. And if it's handled even a little wrong, it could really mess up the damn near perfect ending the show went out on. But you know, that's not the only way Gravity Falls could come back. You know, if we're looking to not mess up the original ending, then I guess there's always option 2. Prequel show. Gravity Falls is a show that takes place over a very long stretch of time. I mean, yeah, the main story only takes place over Dipper and Mabel's summer break, but once you start delving into Stan's backstory, Ford's backstory, Bill Cipher's backstory, the events of this series stretch out for a long time. So obviously, that means there's plenty of material to build off for a prequel, right? Honestly? Yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, a prequel series wouldn't be too bad of an idea on paper. And anyone who delved into the whole Book of Bill ARG on thisisnotawebsite.com knows that there's maybe a little bit of precedent for this. Dang it, okay. For the uninitiated, there's been this big ARG mystery going on ever since the newest Gravity Falls book dropped back in July. And part of that mystery has been a website where you can enter code words to unlock secrets. But the reason I bring it up is because on that site, if you entered the code Season 3, you'd get a message back that just said Season 2. Season 2 got a message that said Season 1, but then typing in Season 1 got a message that read Season -1. Anti-Gravity Falls. It's pretty hard to read that as anything other than a prequel pitch. Maybe it's Alex Hirsch just messing with us or something, but it presents an interesting idea. What all did go down in Gravity Falls before Dipper and Mabel showed up? When they got there, Gravity Falls was already overrun with weird supernatural stuff. And Ford lived in the Mystery Shack for like 6 years, exploring the town's strange phenomena and cataloging it in all the journals. And we see bits of that in the show, especially once Ford makes his deal with Bill Cipher, so we'd know more or less how this story would end. But still, there's a ton of unexplored stories you could tell in that space of time. But technically, those stories have kinda already been explored, just in the books. Yeah, I found this out recently. Journal 3 isn't just some novelty logbook. This is essentially a huge chunk of Ford's story prior to the events of the show. Journal 3 basically is the Gravity Falls prequel, but there are still tons of stories that even this book skips over. See, Journal 3 explores Ford's life in Gravity Falls 6 years into his experiments. This puts things right around the time his partnership with Bill Cipher went sour. And of course, Ford loses his journal not long after this once his argument with Stanley gets out of control and he's pushed through a portal into another dimension. So obviously, Ford's entries in the journals stop there until he gets the book back 30 years later. 30 years! 30 years this dude spent exploring another dimension and survived to tell the story. Except, that story's never really been told. at least not in full. I think this anti-Gravity Falls would be a great way to explore Ford's exile in another dimension, because clearly this dude went through a lot in that time, and exploring different dimensions would give the show endless possibilities. But despite that, I don't really know if this is something that could work, like, long term. Ford's a great character, and it would be great to explore him and his story a bit closer, since, you know, he was kind of a late addition to the show. But this hypothetical prequel definitely feels like the kind of show that would last like one season, like a miniseries. I would say kind of like Adventure Time's Fiona and Cake, but apparently that's getting a second season anyway, so doesn't really prove my point. Now, of course, Ford's story isn't the only one you could explore. You could follow Stanley and all of his failed get-rich-quick schemes. You know, make it more of a comedy show with some family drama baked in. Or, I mean, there's always Bill. Sure, he's the villain of the show, but he's also clearly the most interesting character with the most sordid backstory. The Book of Bill goes super in-depth on Bill's history, where he's from, why he left, and what he did after. We get a lot of stories in this book about Bill meeting a new human, tricking them into partnering up, and trying to convince them into building a portal that Bill could use to spark Weirdmageddon. But every time, those plans fail and Bill has to start over from scratch. And I mean, these stories go back hundreds of years, at least. And if you handled it just right, I could see this being a fun prequel series.
The Misadventures of Triangle Dangle is a little tangled.
Okay, maybe we can workshop the title. But you know, basically a show about Bill's life. His birth in the second dimension, the series of unfortunate events that led him to leave his home for the Nightmare Realm, the crazy adventures he went on with his henchmaniacs, and his eventual series of failed attempts to cause Weirdmageddon. I think there's a lot of potential here, but I can also see a number of issues. For one, we're kind of looking at two different shows here. The story of Bill in the second dimension and his glory days in the Nightmare Realm, that's one thing. One pretty straightforward, ongoing story. But then, once Bill reaches the point where he's constantly trying to trick humans into being his partner, we lose a lot of that consistent narrative in favor of a much more formulaic, kind of comedy-focused series. You know, like how Phineas and Ferb has the boys tackle a new project only for it to disappear at the end of every episode, or how Doofenshmirtz has a new evil plan that Perry the Platypus thwarts every time, that kind of thing. That's kind of what this second half of the Bill Cipher show would turn into. Every time Bill nearly gets his portal built, it all crumbles and it's back to square one. That's a whole different kind of show. So the question becomes, how do you balance these two very different stories? You know, which do you prioritize? Bill's string of failed partnerships does have more potential for an ongoing series with plenty of new locations and characters, but if you focus on that, you're leaving a really strong standalone story on the table. The origins of Bill are clearly the more interesting part of the story here, but I feel like that's a season at most. But of course, the real problem with the Bill Cipher prequel series is that it just kind of ruins the mystique, you know? Bill is this chaotic demon thing from a place we've never seen who's lived more life than we could ever know. The fact that his origins are so shrouded with mystery is part of what makes him compelling. The Book of Bill does dive into a lot of his backstory, but it's careful to leave a lot of details out, in a way that you couldn't easily do in a full-fledged animated series. I just feel like a Bill Cipher prequel would be so entertaining to see, but ultimately do kind of a disservice to the character. I mean, screw it, you could just toss all the supernatural stuff out the window and do Dipper and Mabel go to school. Sure, there wouldn't be any monsters or secret societies, but there would be lockers, language arts class, the spring fling. Look, I don't know, man. Is there plenty of potential for a Gravity Falls prequel? Yeah, probably. But most of the concepts for prequels, whether it's Ford, Stanley, or Bill's stories, I'm just not sure how much longevity any of them have. They all feel like they'd be like a decent mini-series or even a 30-minute special. Not sure if they got much substance to go further than that. The original show does a pretty damn good job of shining a light on these stories to begin with, so I'd also be kind of worried that a prequel would just be treading old ground, ironically. And what the original show doesn't explore, you know, for the most part, has been put into the books instead. That's why we have such great Gravity Falls books like Journal 3 and the Book of Bill. So while I definitely think there are prequel stories to tell in the Gravity Falls universe, it feels like what we've got has kind of covered that ground already. So the chances of getting that season -1 anti-Gravity Falls are probably not that likely. But if we can't go to the past, then I guess there's always the future. Option 3, spin-off. At the end of Gravity Falls, we get a classic Where Are They Now kind of segment. Grunkle Stan and Ford go off adventuring in their boat the Stan-O-War, sailing the seas and fighting giant squids. Seuss takes over running the Mystery Shack with his girlfriend. Of course, Dipper and Mabel go back home, and Old Man McGucket moves into a giant mansion. Good for him. Good for him. With this big of a status quo change at the end of the series, there's obviously ways that these stories could then spin off into their own shows. Now, I don't think I'm breaking anyone's heart here by saying that Seuss running the Mystery Shack or Lifestyles of the Rich and Crazy aren't particularly good spin-off ideas. But following the adventures of Stan and Ford as they've rekindled their brotherly relationship and set off on the globe-trotting adventures they've always wanted to experience, that's a great spin-off idea. You get all the same action, adventure, drama, mystery, and comedy that you want from Gravity Falls in that concept. And with that setup, you could even potentially kill two birds with one stone, allowing the story of Stan and Ford now to become a lens into Stan and Ford's past, allowing this spin-off to also explore some prequel concepts. But you know, to be fair, maybe we should give our good boy Seuss a chance. He is one of the most beloved characters in the show after all. So what would a Seuss spin-off look like? Well, as established, by the end of Gravity Falls, Seuss is promoted to be the new owner of the Mystery Shack. He dons the suit and fez and takes over the duties of Mr. Mystery, giving tours of the many supernatural attractions that Stan cobbled together with a bunch of garbage. That sets up a lot of potential for just good comedy. Seuss trying to bullcrap his way through running this tourist trap while also just being so intensely passionate about it. It's a really likable premise. Plus, we see his girlfriend Melody's running the place with him, and going deeper into their relationship and dynamic would be kinda interesting. And since Seuss is one of the only members of the main team still living in Gravity Falls, we could still see a bunch of other familiar faces and locations. So, you know, we'd get to see the return of Wendy, Gideon, Old Man McGucket, Toby Determined, I don't know. All those guys. And of course, there's no reason the Stans or Dipper and Mabel couldn't make a few appearances too. But overall, I could see this being mostly a comedy-driven show about Seuss just trying to run the shack. I can't imagine it would delve too much into any action or mystery. It'd just be goofy and, you know, the more I describe this, the more it just sounds like the Patrick Star Show, but with Seuss. Okay, yeah, maybe that's not the best idea. Really, the big reason that I doubt a Gravity Falls spinoff would work is because, quite frankly, I just don't know if a Gravity Falls show of any kind can really work without Dipper and Mabel. These two aren't just the main characters, they're the heart of the show, and the driving force behind its mystery plot. Dipper and Mabel have such a curiosity for the world around them that isn't really matched by any other set of characters. Their sense of discovery is what makes Gravity Falls so engaging to watch, and why people got so invested in the mystery in real life, cracking codes and solving ARGs and all that bull. Maybe you could get close to that with Stan and Ford, but I'm not sure. And again, the only real spin-off you could do with Dipper and Mabel is just put them in school. Literally follow that bus at the end and just let the show keep rolling from there. Yeah, it's like those later seasons of Ed, Edd and Eddy where summer break ends and suddenly they're all in school for some reason. Well, I know the reason, summer break's over, but that's how school systems work. Duh. I remember those episodes. I like those episodes, but I don't really think they were popular. Dipper and Mabel being back in school after the most life-changing summer they could have ever experienced would be interesting, I guess, but I doubt it would be a bit you could stretch for even an entire season. And honestly, it kind of feels like a fan fiction idea more than anything. I don't know. I'm not saying it's fully impossible to make a good Gravity Falls spin-off show. I just think, again, it's a lot harder than you might expect, especially if you have to break up the family dynamic that the show really hinges on. Finding a way to build on top of this show with more seasons of anything, continuation, prequel, or spin-off, all while retaining and respecting the established canon is just so complicated. And the even bigger roadblock here is the series creator, Alex Hirsch. Dude still loves Gravity Falls and clearly still has stories to tell, but he's also made it pretty clear that he's not super interested in working on more seasons of Gravity Falls, you know, for TV. I heard him say in an interview that he enjoys tackling mediums he's not sure if he can pull off.
I'm most interested in doing things if I don't entirely know if I can pull it off. My interest in it is very dependent on the medium. Like, part of why I wanted to do the Book of Bill is like, oh, this one character perspective thing, and it's gonna be, the art's gonna be really experimental. Like, I'm really creatively restless. Something that feels like a new precipice for me gets me really hyped.
So now that he's done Gravity Falls, the idea of just doing more for the sake of more doesn't really appeal to him. At least that's what I got from the interview. And I was talking about all this with Lee from Film Theory, and he, ever so wise, reminded me that Alex Hirsch does not own Gravity Falls. At the end of the day, Disney owns the IP and can do whatever they want with it. Hell, they've already made Gravity Falls books without any of Alex's knowledge or involvement. And look how that turned out. But let's face it, ever since the Book of Bill came out, Gravity Falls has been more popular than it's probably ever been. Disney could, if they really wanted to, bypass Alex entirely and just make any new Gravity Falls show they want to capitalize on that huge surge of interest from fans. But Yeah, I'm trying to be optimistic here, dang it. So if Alex Hirsch doesn't want to make a new Gravity Falls TV show, then what if we go outside of TV? Option 4. Video game. Now we're getting into the funky ones, and honestly, the ones that might have a higher potential of actually happening one day. Alex Hirsch is actually on record saying that if he could do anything he wanted, he'd want to make a Gravity Falls video game. You know what I mean, like a real Gravity Falls video game. Okay, so yeah, technically a Gravity Falls video game already exists and has existed for like 9 years. It's called Gravity Falls Legend of the Gnome Gemulets, and it was made back in 2015 for the Nintendo 3DS. That's how old we're talking here. I mean, the 3DS has been dead for like 6 years now. And unfortunately, the game itself, it isn't anything special. It's your bog standard 2D platformer with really simple, really easy levels and boss fights. The art and animation is kind of nice, but ultimately it's not really worth going out of your way to find a copy. I did a whole playthrough in a video a while back if you're interested, but considering I beat it in like an hour and used copies are going for $50? 70? Okay, that must be new because that does not sound right. Yeah, 100%. Don't drop money like that on a game like this. But where Gnome Gemulets was just kind of your average, unremarkable cartoon tie-in game, what Alex Hirsch wants to do is make a real, proper game that goes in-depth into the lore in the way the show never had the chance to. But from the article I read, he doesn't seem to go much further than that. So let's think about it. What would make a good Gravity Falls game? Well, first, you gotta pin down exactly what makes the Gravity Falls show a special and unique experience. You know, what are the fans here for? Well, obviously, Gravity Falls fans, especially today, are here for the mysteries, the codes, the puzzles, and of course, the characters, the story, the comedy, and the nostalgia. And all that, to me, points to one option: point-and-click adventure game. Now hear me out, these kind of games aren't necessarily super popular today, but imagine a game in the Gravity Falls universe based off of something like Sam & Max, Monkey Island, or Day of the Tentacle. These kind of games were all the rage back in the 80s and 90s, and focused exclusively on storytelling, comedic character interactions, and really in-depth puzzle solving. Imagine a game where you can play as Dipper, Mabel, Stan, and Ford, all gathering clues, cracking codes, and solving puzzles in order to unearth some new mysterious secret somewhere in the depths of Gravity Falls. It would fit the show perfectly, and satisfy all the ravenous fans who have been trying to crack the Book of Bill ARG for like months now. I guess the obvious thing here is that these kinds of games don't have much high-energy, real-time gameplay. You're not usually going to be swinging swords, shooting guns, or throwing punches in a game like this. So there's also the option of taking all the story-driven, puzzle-solving stuff and putting it into, say, an RPG instead. You know, think like Paper Mario, old-school Final Fantasy, things like that. This could work, for sure. But in the world of modern cartoons that get turned into video games, there's already a lot of RPGs, honestly. Basically, all the Steven Universe video games are RPGs, in the vein of Paper Mario. Adventure Time Pirates of the Enchiridion is also a full-fledged turn-based RPG, and most of the other Adventure Time games tend to be Zelda clones, which aren't exactly RPGs, but they're in a similar family. Except, my favorite Adventure Time game, Finn and Jake Investigations, which is a point-and-click adventure game focused on solving puzzles and uncovering mysteries in the land of Ooo. I'm just saying, in the world of modern cartoon games, the RPG thing is kind of common, and I just think it would be cool for Gravity Falls to do something a little more unexpected. And a game that can focus exclusively on storytelling, character interactions, and puzzle solving is exactly what a fan base this dedicated to lore hunting and ARG code cracking would just eat up. Plus, I mean, if you want an RPG with the Gravity Falls style, you can just check out our sponsor, Bloomtown. Click the link! Unfortunately, in that same interview from before, Alex Hirsch said that while he's always wanted to make a real Gravity Falls game, he's ultimately not in control of that either. He still doesn't own Gravity Falls, so something like this would be entirely up to Disney. And Disney does have a solid track record of making great video games that can really subvert your expectations when they want to. There was a pretty long stretch there after Disney Infinity kind of petered out that Disney just didn't seem to care about making games anymore. So they shut down Disney Interactive, their entire games division. But there have been some moves lately to revitalize the world of Disney games. I mean, Epic Mickey, one of Disney's biggest and riskiest video game experiments, got a big remaster just this week. Plus, you got really successful stuff like Disney Dreamlight Valley, and it's not in the video game world, but right now Disney has a really successful trading card game going called Disney Lorcana. As someone who pays attention to the trading card world, that has been everywhere. Like, I've been seeing it in stores more than like Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh! Those two things don't necessarily have any representation for like Disney Channel cartoons yet, but who knows? Maybe. Gravity Falls, Phineas and Ferb, all of those would be great additions to those games and trading card things. It could happen. I don't know. So, while Alex Hirsch might not have the ability to just find a developer and make a Gravity Falls game, I don't know. Maybe if there's enough demand, Disney might do it. In which case, please consider this my official pitch for the Gravity Falls point-and-click adventure game, Day of the Triangle. I'm trying. If anyone at Disney is watching, feel free to take that idea. Just make sure to credit me, pay me, and hire me on full time. Moving on, option 5, movie. To me, this is not only the best option out of the lot, but the one that I think has the best chance of actually happening. What if Gravity Falls came back for one last big feature-length adventure? Well, turns out Alex Hirsch is actually kind of down for this. An interview clip of him showed up on my TikTok feed talking about the idea of a movie in the wake of the Book of Bill coming out. This is actually the same interview that I talked about a little bit earlier, where he said that he's mostly interested in tackling mediums that he's not 100% sure he can pull off. And since he's not really done a big theatrical film, he's still pretty open to the idea of tackling a Gravity Falls movie. And according to him, Disney has technically given him the opportunity to make one, but not really.
I would do a Gravity Falls movie, but it would have to be a movie. Later they said after the show was over, they're like, are you interested in a Gravity Falls movie? And I'm like, I finished the story. That would have been the movie. But hey, I might be able to think of a one-off story that creates a big new adventure. But again, it would have to be a movie, not just a long episode. And they're like, oh, never mind.
What Alex wants to do is make a big budget animated feature film. What Disney wanted was usually to just make a slightly longer episode of the show, a TV movie. And Alex was never really interested in that. So just like the video game, we're kind of at a dead end here. However, I think there's more to this, because after reading the Book of Bill, I honestly think Alex has set up everything he needs to make the perfect Gravity Falls movie that would act as a true capstone to the series. So in the Book of Bill, while diving into his backstory, Bill Cipher talks a lot about his home turf, the Nightmare Realm. This is where he went after destroying everything in the second dimension, where he was actually born. He fled to the Nightmare Realm, formed a gang of henchmaniacs, and started causing chaos all over the place. Bill could have easily stayed here for as long as he wanted, but there was a problem. The Nightmare Realm lacked any stable physics. It was literally just a realm of complete and utter chaos, meaning the entire reality was unstable and slowly but surely folding in on itself. Every day, Bill could see this thing, the edge of reality, getting closer and closer to him and his gang. And if something passes over the edge of reality, they don't just die, they cease to exist. They're gone. They never were, which is why Bill wants to enter our dimension in the first place. Of course, in the show, Bill is able to successfully open a portal to the Nightmare Realm and bring all of that unbridled chaos into our more stable dimension. But he's defeated and everything goes back to normal. But that ending was open-ended enough in terms of whether or not Bill Cipher could come back that we are still talking about it in 2024! So let's say, hypothetically, Bill Cipher was working on a way to come back. He broke out of whatever interdimensional therapist's office he was sentenced to and slowly but surely started building his path back to Gravity Falls. And say that happened to overlap with Dipper and Mabel returning to Gravity Falls, whether that's, 1 year in the future, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, doesn't matter. And as signs of Bill's return make their way into their dimension, the Pines family decide that they need to put a stop to this before Bill can make it back to Gravity Falls. So instead of the Nightmare Realm coming to them, they go into the Nightmare Realm themselves to take Bill down once and for all while the edge of reality gets closer and closer, leading to, in the end, Bill being defeated by being pushed over the edge of reality and blipped out of existence, putting a stop to his schemes permanently. The Pines make it back to Gravity Falls, and their story can officially end. I think this would be the perfect way to bring back Gravity Falls. Taking the fight to the Nightmare Realm really raises the stakes tremendously. Plus, you get all your favorite characters back with no compromises. You get to keep Bill as your main villain, and you get to eradicate him in a way that removes all possibility that he might come back, which will close the story off with no more loose ends. And it's all propped up by information established in the Book of Bill. And heck, you could still incorporate elements of almost all the other ideas we've touched on today. We can see more of Stan and Ford's adventures. We can see what Dipper and Mabel have been doing back home. We can see Seuss running the Mystery Shack. And because a movie like this needs to reestablish a lot of the story and context, we can even get that deeper dive into Bill Cipher's backstory, bringing a bunch of stuff we've only ever read about or seen on the ARG website onto the big screen. If I could cast my vote for anything to bring Gravity Falls back, it would 100% be this hypothetical movie pitch. and the video game, let's be honest. Again, ultimately none of this is up to us or Alex Hirsch. It's up to Disney. And Disney just kinda has a weird relationship with any animated series that isn't about platypus secret agents. But while the whole Book of Bill ARG hasn't necessarily led to anything major yet, the noise we Gravity Falls fans have made over this for the last month is impossible to ignore, even for Disney. And at a time when Disney has been scraping the bottom of the barrel for properties to revive or remake for years, I mean, who knows? Maybe they'll actually listen to us and give Alex Hirsch the chance to not bring the show back, but do something new, fresh, and exciting with one of the most innovative cartoons of all time. I mean, I'm just saying, I mean, I've got a lot of ideas. You could hire me. I think I'd do a good job making Triangle Dangle and his Wangly Tangle, whatever I called it.